You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara. Akumah Audiobooks. Chapter 1, The New Year's Eve Dilemma. Tyler stood in front of the bathroom mirror, eyes bloodshot, the faint echo of the shower's steam clinging to the room like an oppressive weight. His fingers brushed against his stubbled jaw, his reflection offering no comfort. If anything, it reminded him of the passage of time he could never quite escape. The same tired eyes stared back at him, as if his body was still stuck in some unremarkable loop, repeating last year's mistakes and disappointments. "New year, new me," he muttered, mocking the overly optimistic slogan that had become as synonymous with New Year's Eve as fireworks and champagne. Tyler wasn't the type to indulge in the ephemeral enthusiasm that rolled in with the new year. He had seen too much of life's broken promises to fall for the cycle. In a way, New Year's was a joke. The world's most recognized moment of self-deception. His hands ran through his dark hair, musing it further. He hadn't bothered with anything special tonight. No fancy clothes, no effort to look better than usual for some imagined transformation. The thought of it seemed futile. The festivities were in full swing around him, his friends were posting cheerful pictures on social media, declaring their resolutions with the same blind optimism that marked every new year. But Tyler wasn't buying it. Resolution? Please. More like delusion. His gaze flickered to the clock hanging on the wall. 11:47 p.m. The countdown has begun. 10 minutes until the official new year, until everything was supposed to feel different. But Tyler wasn't convinced. He didn't expect some magic shift in the cosmos just because the calendar turned a page. What had changed last year, anyway? The same routine, the same thoughts, the same tired promises made and then forgotten by February. Tyler sighed, leaning against the counter, staring at the way his reflection stood stiffly, waiting for something to happen. What's the point? He thought. It's not like a date on the calendar can fix anything. It's just another day. Another Monday in the grand scheme of things. But then his phone buzzed from the edge of the sink. A quick glance at the screen revealed a message from Max, his best friend since childhood. "Max, you coming to the party or what? It's New Year's Eve, man. Don't tell me you're just gonna sit there moping around like last year." Tyler groaned and tossed his phone on the counter, the screen lighting up briefly before going dark. The thought of heading out to that party didn't appeal to him. Not when he already knew what to expect. A house full of loud music, overpriced drinks, and people pretending that somehow, tonight was different. They'd all gather, cheer for the countdown, and then proceed to break every one of their resolutions by mid-January, just like they always did. The cycle continued. Tyler hated the repetition. "I'll go," he thought, reluctantly. "It's just another night. Nothing special." He wasn't the type to leave his friends hanging, and while he didn't enjoy these events, he still felt obligated to show up. The problem was, even as he dressed, half-heartedly pulling on a hoodie and jeans, he couldn't help but feel detached. As if his body was moving on autopilot, while his mind was off in another world entirely. "I wonder what it's like to feel excited about tonight, like they all do," he mused, staring at his reflection again. "Am I missing something? Or am I just too far gone to believe in all this New Year nonsense?" The thoughts swirled in his mind like an unshakable fog. He wanted to believe things could change. He wanted to break free from the constant pressure of feeling like he wasn't doing enough with his life, but something always held him back. Whether it was his lack of confidence or the sheer fear of failure, Tyler didn't know. But one thing was certain, the idea of reinvention felt so foreign to him that he couldn't even entertain it. He reached for his phone again, his fingers hovering over Max's message. The blinking cursor seemed to mock him as he debated whether to reply. Max would just call him later if he didn't show up, anyway. And yet, Tyler couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he was supposed to be different, supposed to care, to be a part of something bigger than himself. But what exactly? Max's voice rang in his head, as if he could hear the sarcasm in his words even without being in the same room. Come on, Tyler. Don't be that guy. We're friends, aren't we? The phone buzzed again. Max, this isn't a joke, you know. It's New Year's Eve. Don't let another year pass without doing something. Doing something, Tyler repeated to himself, and then laughed bitterly. What, like pretending to be happy? He tossed the phone onto the bed and walked back to the mirror. His reflection seemed to stare back at him, as if waiting for some grand epiphany. There was something about the moment that felt hollow, like he was standing at the edge of something, but didn't know which direction to jump. So, what now? He asked himself in the quiet bathroom, the question floating unanswered in the air. Another year. Another set of expectations. Another round of disappointment when everything stays the same. But then, as if to force himself out of the spiral of self-pity, Tyler straightened his posture, took a deep breath, and turned off the light. All right, he muttered. Let's see what happens. But I'm not expecting anything to change. With one last glance at the clock, 11:55 p.m., he grabbed his jacket and made his way out the door, the party, his friends, and the new year all waiting for him just beyond the threshold. Tyler's phone buzzed again, pulling him from his thoughts as he reached the door. He picked it up without checking the screen. Let's just get this over with, he muttered, a resigned exhale escaping him. But when he saw the name on the screen, Alex, his fingers froze for a second. Alex, dude, you're still coming, right? Mia's bringing some friends. Tyler's heart did that weird little jolt it always did whenever Mia's name came up. He couldn't explain it. There was something about her, something disarming. She was everything he wasn't: outgoing, loud, full of life. Tyler, on the other hand, preferred the background. He liked being invisible, and liked the safety of quiet spaces. But Mia seemed to see through that, almost as if she was able to cut through the walls he'd carefully built over the years. She was always smiling, always talking, always real. And he didn't know what to make of that. Mia's bringing some friends, Alex's words echoed in his mind. The thought of Mia showing up at the party tonight added an odd layer of pressure. Tyler's stomach twisted a little at the idea. He hadn't quite figured out how to be around her without feeling out of place. He wanted to talk to her, sure, but how? What was he supposed to say to someone like her? Someone who, despite being surrounded by people, seemed to notice him. Noticing Tyler wasn't something he was used to. His fingers hovered over the screen as his mind scrambled for an excuse. But none came. He could just say, I'm not in the mood. He could lie, say he had other plans. But those excuses always felt so empty. The truth was, he had nothing else to do. And staying home wasn't going to make him feel any better. The clock ticked on. It was 11:56 p.m. now. With a sigh that he wasn't sure was resignation or just simple inevitability, he typed a quick reply. Sure. He put the phone back down on the bed and stood there for a moment, looking at it. That was it then, wasn't it? He was going. I guess it's just another party. Loud music, stupid games, and half-baked conversations, Tyler thought, trying to convince himself that it didn't matter. Probably won't even remember anything tomorrow. It'll be just like every other year. But even as he stood there, part of him couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this year would be different.
Yeah.
Right. He rolled his eyes at himself. He was just grasping for a sliver of hope in an otherwise gray world. New Year's was just a reset button for everyone else. For him? It was just another day. Why do I even care? He muttered under his breath. But the thought lingered, gnawing at the back of his mind. Maybe this year, something will finally break through. Maybe tonight, something will change. But what? Tyler didn't know. The idea of change, of hope, felt like an old shirt he'd been holding onto for too long, one that didn't fit anymore. With a deep breath, he pulled himself away from the phone and grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. The cool fabric of it felt strangely comforting as he slid it on, as though it was somehow anchoring him to something familiar. Maybe that was what he needed, something familiar. Something that wouldn't judge him or expect anything from him. A place where he could just be himself, or at least pretend to be. The party won't be any different. It's just another night. Right, he muttered to himself as he turned off the lights in his room. As he made his way out the door, he couldn't help but replay the conversation with Alex in his head. The way Alex had sounded so sure that Tyler would come. And the way he'd casually dropped Mia's name as if that was supposed to be some big incentive. Tyler didn't know how to feel about it. Why do I even care? It's just a party. I should just go and get it over with. Still, his mind wandered. What was Mia even like outside of those fleeting moments when she managed to break through his walls? Does she even care if I'm there? Tyler asked himself. Or am I just another body in the room to her? But before he could spiral any further, Tyler shoved the thought aside. He didn't want to overthink this. There was nothing to overthink. It wasn't like Mia had asked him to do anything special or profound. It was just another party, just another night to blend in with the crowd. And blending in was something Tyler had mastered. By the time Tyler arrived at Alex's house, the familiar buzz of activity from within reached him even before he stepped onto the porch. It felt like stepping into a different world altogether, a world that, for the most part, Tyler had always kept at arm's length. He'd been to enough of Alex's parties to know the drill. Loud music. Clinking glasses. People shouting over each other, pretending that everything they said was meaningful. He paused at the door for a moment, hand on the knob. Here goes nothing, he thought, pushing it open. The door swung open to reveal the chaos inside. The heavy bass of a song vibrated through the walls, and the laughter and chatter of people filled the air. The smell of pizza and cheap beer hit him first, followed by the faint scent of cologne and hairspray. His eyes scanned the room, landing on the familiar faces of his friends, all of them animated and full of energy, while Tyler felt like a shadow in the corner, a witness to everyone else's excitement. Tyler! Alex's voice cut through the noise, and he waved enthusiastically from the couch, his arms wide as if Tyler had just returned from some grand adventure. Tyler gave him a half-smile and waved back. "You're late," Alex teased, his grin wide. "I thought you'd bail on us." Tyler didn't respond immediately, instead taking a slow, measured step into the room, feeling the weight of the noise and movement push against him. Bail? No. Just late. Same difference, he thought, as his eyes briefly met Alex's. Same as always, Tyler thought as he moved into the crowd. A sense of detachment washed over him, but at least he was here. At least tonight, he wasn't stuck in the silence of his own thoughts. He was here, and that was something. For now, that would have to be enough. Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara. Akumah Audiobooks. Chapter 2, A New Year, A New Start. Tyler leaned against the snack table, the cold plastic cup of soda in his hand offering a small comfort against the cacophony surrounding him. He was a piece of furniture at this party, unseen, unnoticed, just blending into the background. Music pounded through the speakers, heavy bass reverberating in his chest, but Tyler's mind wandered, far away from the chaotic energy filling the room. People bustled around him, most of them already deep in conversation, drinks in hand, laughter echoing through the house. Some were laughing so loud Tyler could feel their enthusiasm almost physically, but to him, the sounds just blurred into one indistinct hum. The familiar buzz of Alex's friends, the same faces, the same jokes, the same everything. Another night of doing the same thing and pretending it matters. The punch bowl sat in front of him, a frosty blue concoction that looked like something out of a bad movie. A few teens hovered around it, pouring their cups full of the sugary mix, smiling and chatting like this was the most important moment of their lives. Tyler didn't understand it. How could they be so invested in something so fleeting? It all felt so shallow to him. The music, the clinking of glasses, the idle chatter about school, about summer plans, about anything that didn't matter. But still, he stayed. What else is there to do? His eyes wandered aimlessly across the room, trying to avoid the conversations happening around him. His gaze locked onto Mia for a second. She was laughing, her head thrown back in that effortless way she had when something truly amused her. The group of girls she was with, all of them just as vivacious and carefree, hung on every word she said. Tyler couldn't help but watch her. There was something magnetic about her, something that made her stand out in the room full of people trying so hard to make themselves seem important. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just being, and that was what made her different from everyone else. Mia's energy was a stark contrast to his own, like daylight next to the shadows. Her smile was genuine, her laugh bright, and Tyler felt a twinge of something unfamiliar in his chest. What is it about her? He wondered. Why can't I just be like that? The girls she was talking to noticed Tyler's stare, and one of them, Chloe, if he remembered correctly, nudged Mia's arm. Mia turned her head, her eyes finding Tyler across the room. For a brief moment, their gazes met. Tyler felt his heart skip a beat, but quickly looked away. His fingers tightened around the cup as he tried to hide behind the soda, trying to pretend he wasn't just standing there, silently observing. But the brief glance lingered in his mind, making his pulse race. Did she notice me staring? What was I even doing? He thought, irritated at himself for feeling so off balance. Mia's lips quivered into a smile, almost as if she found his awkwardness amusing, but it was fleeting. Then, without another word to her friends, she turned and started walking toward the dance floor. Tyler's stomach did a strange flip, and for the first time since he arrived, he felt out of place. He wasn't used to being seen. People in his life, his friends, they all let him slide by unnoticed. Mia, though, she had a way of making him feel like he wasn't just a background character in his own life. Why does it feel like she's calling me out? His thoughts raced, his inner voice almost mocking him, as he tried to shake off the unease that settled over him. Get a grip, Tyler. She's just another person. It doesn't matter. But the way Mia had looked at him, even for that brief second, felt different. And for reasons he couldn't quite explain, it mattered more than he wanted to admit. The hum of the party buzzed in his ears again, and Tyler forced himself to focus on something else. The last thing he wanted was to dwell on a look he had shared with a girl he barely knew. It was ridiculous. This was just a party. It was supposed to be about having fun, letting loose, forgetting about the usual worries. He took another sip of his soda, pretending the fizz was enough to distract him from the sudden tightness in his chest. So why am I still thinking about her? He wondered, letting out a quiet sigh. Mia's presence was like a ripple in a pond, and Tyler couldn't seem to stop staring at the waves she created. The music shifted into something faster, and people on the dance floor started jumping to the beat. Tyler stood still, hands shoved in his pockets, watching the chaos unfold around him. His gaze flickered back to Mia. She was laughing again, her arms in the air as she swayed with the rhythm, her hair moving like a dark cloud in the flashing lights. Tyler couldn't help but feel a pang of longing. What was it like, to be that carefree, to just be? This is dumb, Tyler thought, shaking his head. Why am I even paying attention to her? He turned back to the snack table, distracted by the sight of a few people reaching for chips and more of the weird blue punch. The momentary calm helped him push the thoughts of Mia aside, at least for a moment. Tyler stayed by the table, his thoughts bouncing from one thing to another as he nursed his soda. His friends, Alex and the others, were scattered around the room, but Tyler didn't feel much like joining them. They were already in the thick of things, talking, joking, being the life of the party. Tyler wasn't like that. He wasn't interested in doing all the same things everyone else was. Not because he thought he was better, but because he couldn't get over how shallow it all felt. Was this really what everyone was so excited about? He didn't feel like it. It all seemed like noise, filling up space, filling up time. Empty. I'd rather be home right now, he thought, but there was no way he could leave. Not when everyone expected him to stay. Not when he'd promised Alex he'd come. Besides, it wasn't like staying home would make a difference. The loneliness he felt here was the same loneliness he'd feel in his room, on his couch, with nothing but his own thoughts to keep him company. A loud cheer broke his reverie as someone started a game in the other room. Tyler's ears perked up for a moment, but he didn't feel the slightest inclination to join. Another game of spin the bottle or truth or dare. It always felt so forced, like everyone was just trying to prove something. He couldn't do it. He didn't want to play games with people he barely knew, or worse, have to pretend he was having fun. It's just exhausting. His eyes fell back to Mia, who was still dancing, still laughing, still drawing everyone's attention without even trying. For some reason, Tyler's thoughts wandered back to her again. Why does she look so free? He wondered, his mind not quite able to shake the image of her joy. What was her secret? How could someone be so alive? Why can't I be like that? He asked himself. Why can't I just let go, just feel something? But before he could answer himself, Alex appeared beside him, his face flushed from dancing, eyes sparkling with that gleam of someone enjoying themselves way more than Tyler could ever understand. Yo, you good? Alex asked, nudging him with his elbow. You've barely moved. Come on, man, you gotta at least act like you're having fun. Tyler forced a smile, though it felt stiff.
Yeah.
I'm good. Just taking it all in, he muttered, taking another sip from his cup, feeling the fizz hit the back of his throat. It didn't help. It never did. Come on. Mia's over there, Alex said with a smirk, clearly seeing the way Tyler's eyes kept drifting in her direction. You should go talk to her. She's fun, man. You might actually have a good time. Tyler's heart skipped at the mention of her name. He didn't know what to say. I can't just go up to her. She's different. She's not like everyone else here. But even as he thought it, he realized something he hadn't before. He wanted to know more about her. Maybe, just maybe, this New Year's Eve wasn't as pointless as he'd thought. Tyler barely has time to prepare himself before Mia is standing in front of him, a bright smile on her face that almost seems to light up the room. She looks completely at ease, completely herself, as if this was just another part of her day. She tilts her head slightly, her eyes sparkling with curiosity and something else, something that makes Tyler's stomach do an odd flip. "Tyler, right?" she says, her voice warm and inviting, but with a playful edge, like she's teasing him for taking so long to join the party. "I was hoping you'd make it." Her tone is casual, but there's an undercurrent of excitement, a sense that she's genuinely happy to see him here. Tyler stands frozen for a second, unsure what to do with the sudden attention. He's used to being on the periphery, to fading into the background where nobody notices or expects anything from him. But now, here she is, looking at him like he's exactly where he's supposed to be. His chest tightens, and he has to remind himself to breathe. "Keep it together, man. Just act normal. Don't be weird."
Yeah.
"I made it," Tyler responds, feeling the tension in his voice. "Great job, genius." He fidgets with his cup, trying to act like he's totally comfortable with the whole situation, but it's a struggle. He's not good at talking to people, especially not people like Mia, people who are easy on their own skin, people who don't seem to carry the weight of their thoughts around like he does. Why does she make me feel so off? Mia doesn't seem to notice his internal struggle. Instead, she jumps straight into conversation, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. "So, the theme of the party is all about New Year's resolutions," she says, rolling her eyes dramatically. "You know, everyone's making promises they know they won't keep." "Like, really? How many people do you think will actually hit the gym in the next few weeks?" She laughs, and it's genuine, like she's not just mocking the resolutions for the sake of it, but because she's had the same thoughts. Tyler can't help but feel the slightest spark of relief. Finally, someone who gets it. "Exactly," Tyler agrees, finding his voice a little easier now. "Everyone says they're going to change, but who actually follows through? It's like this weird tradition, pretending that a random date on the calendar can make all your problems disappear." His inner cynicism kicks in, even though he's trying to stay casual. "I mean, who am I kidding? People change if they want to, not because of a number ticking over. And nobody seems to want to change." Mia smirks at him, her expression one of amused understanding. "Right? It's like, hello? You were procrastinating for 12 months and suddenly today's the day you'll be a completely different person? Hilarious." She shakes her head, clearly finding the whole thing absurd. Tyler can't help but laugh along with her, a small, real chuckle escaping his lips. It feels easy, too easy. Why is this so simple? For a moment, Tyler forgets to be on guard. He forgets to be the distant, disconnected guy who doesn't care about the small talk. He's actually talking to her. And somehow, it feels like it's not as awkward as he expected it to be. There's no pressure, no need to impress. For once, Tyler's not wondering what the hell he's supposed to say next. It's like the words just flow, without him having to force them. Mia's eyes glint with something mischievous. "And let's not even get started on the 'I'm going to meditate every day' crowd," she continues. "Like, what are you really going to do? Sit in your room, breathing deeply for 5 minutes while scrolling through Instagram? It's a joke." Tyler snorts, his soda momentarily forgotten. "Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's their version of meditation. I mean, you'd think people would at least try to be a little more original with their resolutions," Mia says, leaning forward a little, as if she's letting him in on some big secret. "Like, why not go for something real? I'm going to start reading books I actually enjoy instead of pretending I'm going to finish War and Peace in a weekend. You know, small wins." She smirks, her playful energy taking over again. Tyler feels a smile tug at the corner of his lips, a real one this time, and he catches himself before he can grin too widely. "No need to act like a total dork now, Tyler. You've still got that tough exterior to maintain." But the way she makes it all seem so easy, so light, makes him feel, well, not so bad. It's strange, but in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Read more is always the go-to resolution, Tyler says, lifting his cup to his lips and taking a sip. He's not sure what it is about Mia, but suddenly, the party feels a little less suffocating. The music still thumps in the background, the conversations still buzz, but for the first time that night, Tyler doesn't feel like a ghost in the room. Is this what normal people do? Have conversations? Without it feeling like some huge, unnecessary performance? Mia raises her eyebrows, as if she's testing him, seeing just how much he's willing to let slip. So, what's your big resolution for this year? Or are you just like the rest of us, too cynical to bother? Her tone is teasing, but there's a genuine curiosity behind her words. Tyler hesitates, the question hitting him harder than he expects. What's his resolution? He hasn't thought about it, not really. He'd given up on resolutions years ago, knowing full well that he wouldn't follow through. Why bother pretending? But something about the way Mia looks at him, waiting for an answer, makes him feel like maybe, just maybe, he could give a real answer. I don't know, he says, his voice quieter than before, almost thoughtful. I guess I've never been the resolution type. He shrugs, trying to brush it off with a smile, but there's a slight edge to his words now. Why does she care? Mia doesn't miss a beat. Fair enough, she replies with a grin. I'm not really into the whole new year, new me thing either. But maybe, just maybe, this year will be a little different. Tyler's heart gives a strange lurch at the way she says it, like she actually believes it. Like maybe there's something about this year that could change everything. He doesn't know why, but the thought of change, of something being different this year, pulls at him. He wants to say something, but the words feel stuck in his throat. Why does she have this effect on me? Why does the idea of this girl, with her easy smile and her teasing remarks, make him feel like maybe, just maybe, he isn't as stuck as he thought he was? Before he can say anything more, Mia pulls back slightly, glancing around the room. Anyway, she says, her voice snapping back to her usual playful tone, I should probably go check on my friends. But I'll catch you later, okay? She smiles at him, and Tyler's chest tightens again, this time with something different.
Yeah.
Sure, he says, almost too quickly. He forces a casual grin, but his mind is already spinning. She turns to leave, but then pauses, looking over her shoulder one last time. Oh, and Tyler? He looks up at her, his heart unexpectedly pounding. You're not half bad company. Maybe you should think about changing your resolution after all. And just like that, she's gone, disappearing back into the crowd with her friends. Tyler stands there, feeling a strange sense of emptiness where she was just standing. His heart is still racing, his mind whirling with her words. Did she really just say that? Did she just make me feel, not like myself? He stands there for a moment longer, processing the brief exchange. Mia's different, he thinks, his mind still spinning. She's different, and I don't know why, but it feels like maybe I should try to figure that out. Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara. Akumah Audiobooks. Chapter 3, The Unexpected Connection. Tyler walks back from the party, the music fading behind him as he steps out into the chilly night air. The buzz of the party lingers in his mind, but something else is there too, an unfamiliar warmth, a strange pull. Mia's words, her smile, the way she'd seemed so effortless with him. It felt too easy, too natural. But as much as he tries to push it out of his mind, her face keeps drifting into his thoughts, like a song he can't shake off. His phone vibrates in his pocket, and he pulls it out, not expecting anything. But there it is, Mia's name lighting up the screen. Have fun tonight, hope to see you around more. Tyler stares at the message, unsure of what to feel. His heart does a weird flip, the kind he's never felt before. He reads the words again. It's casual, right? Nothing too heavy. Just friendly. But even that small gesture feels like a shift, like something's changing, something he didn't expect to happen. I'm not one of those guys who gets his hopes up, he tells himself, forcing his mind to settle. I mean, she's just being nice. No need to overthink this. But despite his best efforts to stay grounded, his thoughts scatter, racing with possibilities. Could this be the start of something? His mind doesn't know how to handle the idea of something, of change, of new beginnings. Change was supposed to be something he controlled, something he could predict. But this? Mia? He couldn't even begin to guess what it all meant. He looks at the text again, running his thumb over the screen as he processes it. Okay, keep it together. Just respond. Keep it light. His fingers hover over the keyboard for a moment before he types a quick, safe response. Had a good time too. Definitely see you around. Simple. No need to overcomplicate things. But then his thumb hovers over the screen again, the temptation to add more gnawing at him. He goes to add a smiley face, then deletes it. Don't be that guy. Don't be weird. The moment feels ridiculous. He's sitting on his bed, staring at his phone as though his entire future depends on this one message. But he can't shake the feeling that something's changing. Something's different about this year, about Mia. What the hell am I even doing? Tyler thinks to himself, sinking back against his pillows. He feels almost embarrassed by how much he's overthinking this. This is how it's always been for him. He avoids getting too involved because it's easier to stay on the sidelines. When you don't care about anything, you don't risk getting hurt. But something about this girl, this moment, is making him question everything. His phone buzzes again, interrupting his spiral. This time, it's a group text from Alex. Yo, dude. Are you still going out for New Year's Day brunch tomorrow? I'm starving just thinking about it. Let's make it a tradition. Burrito pancakes. Tyler groans, rubbing his temples. Tradition? Really? What am I, 5? The invitation is harmless enough, but it's just another thing to navigate in his mind. His friends, their predictability, the usual routine. Tyler isn't sure he's ready for it. But then again, what else does he have to do? Mia's not going to be at the brunch, but it's a chance to hang out with people who don't make him feel vulnerable. The choice is easy, isn't it? Stick with the predictable. Stick with the safe. But Mia keeps creeping into his thoughts. She's different, and he's not sure if he's ready for that. He stares at his phone for a long moment, feeling the pull of both options. His thumb hovers over the yes, reply to the brunch invitation, but then his finger swipes over to the message from Mia again. Maybe this is the problem. Maybe Tyler's never been able to do both, be comfortable with his routine while also allowing space for something new. He wants to be open to the possibility of change, of connection. But at the same time, the part of him that craves safety, that craves the familiarity of things he can control, is screaming to shut it all down. Why am I thinking so much about this? He pulls his mind back, trying to focus. He's always been the guy who overthinks, who assumes everything means more than it does. He's been burned before by putting too much weight on small moments, too much hope on things that turned out to be nothing. He doesn't want to be that guy again, the one who hopes for things that never come. He's seen how that goes. He knows the disappointment. Tyler stands up and walks over to his window, staring out at the dark sky. The night is cold, the world outside quiet and still. His mind, however, is anything but still. It's racing, trying to make sense of all the new things that have suddenly been introduced into his life. What's wrong with me? Mia's smile flashes in his mind. That easy, confident smile that made him feel, what? Special? Seen? He doesn't know. He's never been good with this. Being open. Letting people in. I've never been good at this. He exhales slowly, running a hand through his hair. This year was supposed to be just like the others, routine, safe. But then he met Mia. And now, it feels like maybe he has to confront the fact that change might be inevitable. Am I ready for that? The thought unsettles him, and the weight of it lingers. So, he does what he's always done when things get too complicated. He pushes the thought aside and focuses on something easier. Something he can control. He taps out a quick message to Alex, the distraction he needs right now.
Yeah.
I'll come. Let's see what's on the menu. He sends it off without thinking too much about it. Just like that, he's back in his familiar lane, predictable, safe. But the buzzing in his pocket, the small but constant reminder that something is shifting, makes it impossible for him to ignore. He doesn't know what it is yet, but Tyler's certain that whatever's coming, he won't be able to stay on the sidelines for much longer. He stares at his phone one last time before sliding it onto his desk. Maybe this year will be different. Maybe. But the uncertainty lingers. Can I let it be? The next morning, Tyler meets Alex at their usual spot by the park, an old, weathered bench nestled beneath the canopy of oak trees. It's been their hangout for as long as Tyler can remember, a place where they've shared everything from dumb jokes to deep talks about life, school, and everything in between. The bench, with its chipped paint and the worn grooves in the wood, holds all the memories of their teenage years. It's familiar, safe, the perfect place for Tyler to pretend things are still the same, even when nothing feels the same anymore. Alex is already sitting on the bench when Tyler arrives, leaning back casually with his arms stretched out across the backrest. He's wearing his usual laid-back smile, the one that's always a little too knowing, like he's always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Tyler doesn't even need to say anything. Alex already knows. So, what's the deal with Mia? Alex asks, his voice light but with that unmistakable edge of curiosity. You two hit it off last night? Tyler feels the familiar rush of warmth creep up his neck at the mention of her name. He hates how quickly his body betrays him, how easily his thoughts shift to Mia. He rolls his eyes, doing his best to keep his tone nonchalant. We just talked. It's nothing, he replies, his voice coming out a little more defensively than he intended. Alex doesn't buy it. Of course, he doesn't. He leans forward, narrowing his eyes, his lips curling into a teasing smirk. Sure. But you're acting differently. You've got this look on your face like you're actually thinking about your New Year's resolution. Tyler can feel his stomach twist uncomfortably. He wants to roll his eyes again, but the truth is, Alex is right. I'm acting differently. But admitting that? Admitting that something's shifting within him? That's harder than it sounds. I don't know, man, Tyler mutters, avoiding Alex's gaze. He kicks at the dirt beneath the bench, staring at his sneakers as if they hold the answers he's looking for. I guess I just don't want to be the same person this time next year. Alex lets out a loud, dramatic laugh, shaking his head as if he can't believe what he's hearing. You're such a cliché, he teases, nudging Tyler with his elbow. Next thing I know, you're gonna tell me you've got a vision board and a 5-year plan. Tyler can't help but chuckle, though it feels forced. Don't mock me, man. You asked. But as Alex laughs and nudges him again, Tyler's quiet reflection takes over. He's not sure what he wants this year to be, but something inside him is telling him he needs to change, to stop being stuck in the same routine, the same patterns. What if this year is different? What if I actually make a real change? That thought, the one that has been echoing in the back of his mind ever since the party last night, settles into his chest with surprising weight. Maybe he's tired of being the guy who stays on the sidelines, the one who avoids getting too close to anyone. Maybe it's time to do something different, something that might make him a little less comfortable but a little more alive. But then, the fear creeps in. What if I mess it up? What if I'm just setting myself up for disappointment? He's been down that road before, the one where he gets his hopes up, only to have them crash down. Dude, Alex says, pulling him out of his spiraling thoughts. You're quiet. What's going on in that head of yours? Tyler shrugs, trying to brush it off. Just thinking. Well, don't think too much. You'll make your head explode. Alex grins, obviously trying to lighten the mood. But seriously, man, if you're thinking about making a resolution, go for it. Just don't do what everyone else does, like I'm gonna lose 10 pounds or I'm gonna start working out every day. That's just setting yourself up to fail. Tyler lets out a dry laugh, but his mind is still racing. It's easier to mock resolutions, easier to pretend they don't matter. But Alex's words have hit him in a way he didn't expect. What if I don't just make some empty resolution? What if I actually try to change? But what does that even look like? He can't remember the last time he put himself out there in any meaningful way. It's safer to stay in the shadows, he thinks. No one can disappoint you if you don't let them in.
Yeah,
I get it, Tyler mutters, leaning back against the bench. But it's hard, you know? Like, who am I supposed to be this year? I don't even know where to start. Alex shrugs, his tone more serious now. I don't know, man. It's not about who you're supposed to be. It's about who you want to be. If you're tired of feeling stuck, then figure out what that looks like. Don't wait for some magical moment to make it happen. Tyler doesn't answer right away. He stares out at the park, the early morning light casting long shadows across the ground. The air smells fresh, like possibility, but Tyler feels the weight of his uncertainty pressing down on him. Who do I want to be? The question lingers, unanswered, as Alex's words swirl in his mind. His phone buzzes, cutting through the quiet moment. It's a text from Mia. So, what's your New Year's resolution? Tyler stares at the message, his heart skipping a beat. She's asking me? It's a casual question, nothing that should make him feel like he's on the verge of some life-altering decision, but there it is. Mia's voice, her words, pulling him out of his own head and into the reality of the moment. I don't even know what to say, he thinks, fingers hovering over the screen. He wants to be honest, but what does honesty even look like right now? I don't know who I want to be, and I don't know how to change. But maybe. He types out a quick response, still figuring that out. But I guess that's the point, right? He sends it before he can second-guess himself. And for the first time in a long while, Tyler feels the stirrings of something other than doubt in his chest. Maybe it won't be easy. Maybe he'll mess up, fail, or even backpedal. But the idea of trying, of figuring things out, doesn't feel quite as scary as it did yesterday. He's ready to stop being the guy who stands on the sidelines. It's time to step into something new, whether he's ready for it or not. Dude, you're so deep today, Alex comments with a laugh, shaking his head. Did you go all New Year, new me on me or something? Tyler smirks, the edges of his lips curling up in a way he hasn't felt in a while. Maybe I did, he says, tapping his phone nervously but with more hope than before. Maybe I did.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 4, Building Bridges. The room is eerily quiet, the kind of silence that's almost suffocating. Tyler sits at his desk, a pen in one hand and a blank sheet of paper in front of him. The glow of the desk lamp casts long shadows, and the cold winter air seeps through the cracks in his window. It's the perfect setting for overthinking. The kind of setting where all of his doubts creep to the surface, louder than anything else. His mind feels cluttered, filled with fragments of thoughts that refuse to settle. What should I write? What should my resolution be? The question hangs in the air, unanswered. Tyler's never been one for New Year's resolutions. They've always seemed like a joke, just another excuse for people to set themselves up for failure. Every year, he watches people make promises they can't keep, only to forget about them by February. He's seen it so many times, the way their hopes fizzle out like fireworks that burn bright and then disappear in a puff of smoke. So why is he sitting here, trying to come up with something that feels real? What's the point? He leans back in his chair, sighing, his gaze drifting to the small pile of textbooks stacked on the corner of his desk. He could be doing something productive, like studying for the tests that are looming in the near future. Or maybe he could be working on the college applications he keeps putting off. But instead, here he is, trying to figure out what kind of person he wants to be. It feels ridiculous. Be more open. Be less cynical. He writes those words down, the ink leaving an imperfect trail on the paper. The words stare back at him, too simple, too idealistic. But there's something in them that feels like an attempt to convince himself. To force himself to believe that he can actually change. That he can be the person he's pretending to be when he's around Mia, when he's with Alex, when he's anywhere but alone with his thoughts. He feels an odd pressure to get it right, like he's been given a second chance at something, and he doesn't want to mess it up. He doesn't want to look back in a year and realize that he's been the same person, stuck in the same rut, never daring to step outside his comfort zone. But the doubt quickly creeps in, like it always does. Who am I kidding? The pen freezes in his hand as the weight of the thought crashes down on him. It's one thing to write these words down, but it's another to actually live by them. I'm not the kind of guy who opens up to people. I'm not the kind of guy who takes risks. The thought of vulnerability, of letting someone in, sends a chill down his spine. He's spent his whole life building walls around himself, keeping people at arm's length. Opening up, being real, it feels dangerous. Like it would strip away the armor he's spent years constructing, and once that armor is gone, who is he left with? He writes a few more words, maybe take a chance on someone. As soon as the words are on the page, he feels a pang of anxiety. What does that even mean? Take a chance on Mia? On anyone? He doesn't know if he's ready for that. He doesn't know if he can trust anyone enough to let them in. The idea of being vulnerable makes his skin crawl. The fear of rejection, of opening up and being rejected, he's seen it happen to others, and he's seen the way it hurts. The way it chips away at your confidence, leaving you questioning everything you thought you knew about yourself. But then, he thinks about last night. About the way Mia looked at him, the way she made him feel like maybe there was something worth pursuing. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to believe it. Maybe this year will be different. But now, as the words stare back at him from the paper, the doubt comes rushing in. He's not sure if he's ready for that kind of change. He's not sure if he's ready to open up, to let go of the carefully constructed walls that have kept him safe for so long. The thought of failing, of trying and not succeeding, is too much to bear. It's easier to stay in his bubble, to stay guarded, to pretend that he doesn't care about anything or anyone. The problem is, deep down, he knows that's not really him. It's just the version of himself he's become out of habit. Out of fear. He rubs his eyes, trying to clear the fog that's clouding his mind. His phone buzzes, breaking the silence. The sudden sound makes him jump. He picks it up, half expecting it to be Alex, sending another joke or comment about his so-called new year, new me mentality. But when he glances at the screen, his heart skips a beat. It's a message from Mia. "Hey, how's the resolution coming along?" Tyler stares at the text for a moment, his fingers hovering over the keys. How's the resolution coming along? It's such a simple question, but for some reason, it feels like the weight of the world is on his shoulders. It's as if Mia is waiting for him to figure things out, like she's expecting him to have it all together. He wants to impress her. He wants to show her that he's capable of more than just the guy who keeps to himself, who hides behind sarcasm and disinterest. But can he really live up to that? Can he actually make this year different? He takes a deep breath and types a reply, still figuring it out. "But I'm working on it." He hits send before he can second-guess himself. He feels a strange mix of relief and anxiety. It's not the answer he wanted to give, but it's the truth. I'm still figuring it out. And maybe that's okay. As soon as the message is sent, he feels a little lighter. Not much, but just enough to remind him that he doesn't have to have everything figured out right now. Change takes time, and it's okay to not have all the answers in the moment. Maybe it's enough just to try. Tyler sets the phone down on his desk, feeling oddly exhausted. There's a sense of quiet finality to the moment, as if he's crossed some invisible threshold. I'm not there yet, he thinks, but I'm trying. And that's more than I've ever done before. He picks up the pen again, staring at the resolution he wrote down earlier. Be more open. Be less cynical. Take a chance on someone. The words don't feel as impossible now. The doubt is still there, lurking, but it feels less suffocating. He's still unsure of himself, still uncertain about how to navigate all the changes he wants to make, but for the first time in a long time, he's willing to take a step forward. One step at a time. The pen moves across the paper again as Tyler writes his first true resolution of the year. Maybe this year will be different. The clink of silverware against plates fills the room, the quiet hum of the dishwasher running in the background. Tyler sits across from his mom at the dinner table, pushing around the vegetables on his plate without really eating them. His thoughts are a million miles away, still tangled up in the resolution he wrote earlier. The words seem so simple. Be more open. Less cynical. Take a chance on someone. He's not sure if he believes them, not sure if they're even possible. But they've been on his mind since he wrote them down. He can't shake the feeling that something's different this time. Maybe this year could be different. His mom looks up from her plate, her eyes bright and curious. "So, Tyler," she starts, her voice light, "what's your New Year's resolution?" The question feels almost like a trap, even though she's asking casually. It's not that she's ever pressured him to be anything he's not, it's just that Tyler has never really thought about resolutions the way other people do. For him, it's always been about maintaining the status quo. He's never wanted to change, and he's certainly never been the type to make bold promises about who he's going to be in the coming year. But now, after last night, after writing down those words, he feels the weight of the question more than he ever has before. His mom, sensing his hesitation, takes a bite of her food and continues, "You know, I never really kept a resolution in my life," she says, almost as an afterthought. "But I think the trick is to start small, not pressure yourself to change overnight. Tyler blinks, her words landing in his mind with a quiet thud. Start small. Not pressure himself. He hadn't thought of it that way. To him, resolutions had always been about big, sweeping changes, dramatic shifts in who he was, who he wanted to be. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe he was trying to tackle too much all at once, expecting to become someone he wasn't overnight. He looks at his mom, who's now busy cutting her food, her expression content. She's always been calm, steady, never one to get swept up in grand ambitions. She's got a quiet wisdom that Tyler sometimes forgets to appreciate. Start small, he repeats to himself. Don't pressure yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right, he finally says, the words feeling strange in his mouth. For a second, he wonders if she's just humoring him, but there's no sign of it. She seems genuinely interested. His mom's always been there for him, always had his back. But this is different. This time, it feels like she's giving him permission to change at his own pace, not the pace the world expects of him. So, what are you going to do? She asks, looking up from her plate. What's your first step? Tyler stares at his plate for a moment, the fork in his hand suddenly feeling heavier than it should. What's his first step? What does that even mean? He feels a rush of uncertainty, the kind that always seems to creep up when he has to decide what's next for him. It's easier to stay stuck, easier to keep the walls up, to keep the routine the same. But something in him rebels against that thought. This time, maybe he doesn't have to stay stuck. I don't know, he admits, shrugging, his voice quieter than usual. Maybe, be more open with people. Not just. I don't know, shut everything out. He's surprised at how quickly the words come out, how they sound so simple when he says them out loud. But hearing them, he feels a strange sort of clarity. It's not about becoming a completely new person overnight, it's about allowing himself to be a little more vulnerable, a little more willing to engage with the world instead of retreating from it. His mom nods approvingly, her eyes softening. That sounds like a good start. Just, don't be too hard on yourself, okay? Change takes time, and it's okay if you don't have it all figured out right now. Tyler feels a wave of relief wash over him. It's not about having everything figured out, it's about trying. About being open to the possibility of change, even if it's just a little bit. He doesn't need to be perfect. He doesn't need to have it all together. He just needs to take that first step. The rest of dinner passes by in a blur, Tyler's mind elsewhere. His mom continues chatting about work, about the plans for the upcoming week, but Tyler is barely listening. He's focused on the words she said, on the idea that change doesn't have to be a giant leap, but a series of smaller steps. Maybe it's okay to take my time. Later that night, Tyler lies in bed, staring up at the ceiling. The room is dark, but he doesn't feel alone. For the first time in a long time, he feels like he's at the beginning of something new. Maybe this year won't be full of huge transformations, but it'll be different in its own way. He turns over onto his side and reaches for his phone. A message from Mia lights up the screen. Hey, I was thinking. Maybe we could hang out sometime this weekend? I'd like to get to know you better. Tyler smiles, his heart skipping a beat. Maybe this is it, he thinks. Maybe this year is the start of something new. He doesn't know what that something is yet, doesn't know where it'll lead, but he feels ready to find out. He types a quick reply, I'd like that. Let's make it happen. As soon as he hits send, he feels a small, almost imperceptible shift inside of him. It's a tiny step, nothing grand, nothing monumental. But it's a start. And that's more than he's ever done before. Tyler sets the phone back down, pulling the covers up around his shoulders. He's still uncertain, still unsure of where this year will take him, but for the first time in a long time, he feels like he's moving forward. Maybe it's just a little spark of hope, but that's enough for now. Just a little hope, and a resolution that doesn't feel so impossible anymore. This year, maybe it will be different. Maybe it won't be all the way different, but a little bit different, that's good enough for him.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 5, Crossroads of Change. Tyler wakes up to the sound of his phone buzzing on his nightstand. The dim light of the early morning filters in through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. For a moment, he considers ignoring it and sinking back into the warmth of his blankets. The thought of staying in bed, cocooned in his thoughts and his own little world, seems comforting. But the buzzing continues, persistent. He groggily reaches over and picks up his phone, squinting at the screen. Mia's name flashes on the display, and for a split second, his heart skips a beat. Had I really been asleep long enough for her to text me already? He wonders. He's still not used to this whole idea of opening himself up to people. His thumb hovers over the screen for a moment before he taps the message open. Hey! I was thinking maybe we could grab coffee later today? I know you said you weren't a big coffee person, but I thought it might be fun to hang out. Tyler stares at the message, his mind whirring with uncertainty. He's still trying to figure out how to navigate these new waters with Mia. They've only talked a couple of times, but there's something about her that makes him feel like he wants to be more than just the guy who keeps to himself. But at the same time, there's that voice in the back of his mind, this is just another thing you'll bail on. Another thing you'll start and never follow through with. Tyler takes a deep breath, resisting the urge to dismiss the idea. He could easily come up with 1,000 excuses, homework, plans with friends, the classic "I'm too tired" routine. But something about Mia's text, the casual tone and the sincerity behind it, makes him pause. What if this is the first step? What if just showing up is enough? With that thought, he taps out a response, his fingers hovering over the keys for a moment longer than necessary. I can do this, he tells himself. Just one step. One thing. It's not a big deal. Sure, I'm in. What time? He presses send before he can second guess himself, immediately regretting the excitement that creeps into his response. He drops the phone beside him on the bed, staring at the ceiling. I'm actually doing this. For the first time in a while, he feels a little thrill. A tiny spark of something that feels almost like hope, but he can't name it yet. It's a simple thing, really. Coffee with Mia. Nothing extravagant, no huge commitment. But for Tyler, this small step feels like more than he's capable of most days. He stands up, stretches, and heads to the bathroom. The morning light now feels less dull, the air a little fresher. Maybe it's the thought of seeing Mia again, or maybe it's the idea that he's doing something that's just for him, but Tyler feels different, just a little bit. As he gets dressed, his mind starts to wander. What if I'm just fooling myself? What if I'm not the kind of guy who changes? What if I can't make it work? The doubts creep in quickly, as they always do. He has a long history of abandoning things when they get difficult, whether it's a project for school, a hobby he loses interest in, or even the things he's tried to tell himself he would improve about himself. There's always a good reason to quit. Always an excuse. But today, something's different. He's tired of quitting before he's even tried. Just take it one step at a time, Tyler. He stands in front of the bathroom mirror, taking a good look at himself. The person staring back at him looks fine. Maybe a little tired, maybe a little unsure, but not bad. What's so scary about showing up as I am? He thinks. What's the worst that could happen? The sound of his phone buzzing again breaks his thoughts. He checks the screen, and Mia replies. How about 2 p.m.? There's a cafe near the park. It's pretty chill. He smiles, the tightness in his chest loosening just a little. She wants to hang out again. This might actually be a thing. By the time 2 p.m. rolls around, Tyler is pacing in his room, unsure of what to wear. Jeans? A hoodie? A t-shirt? He wants to look put together, but he doesn't want to look like he's trying too hard. Eventually, he settles on a simple black hoodie and a pair of well-worn jeans. It's a safe choice, not too much, but enough to keep him from feeling like he's overthinking it. As he walks out the door, his stomach does a flip. The nervous excitement from earlier is still there, but now there's a faint sense of anxiety creeping in. What if this doesn't go well? What if he has nothing to talk about? What if Mia finds him boring, or worse, what if she sees through his attempt at being more open and realizes he's just the same cynical guy he's always been? One step at a time, he reminds himself, his sneakers hitting the pavement with a steady rhythm as he walks toward the cafe. The walk helps to clear his mind, and by the time he reaches the entrance, he feels just a little more confident. The cafe is small and cozy, the kind of place where the coffee tastes like it's been brewed with care, not just for a quick profit. Tyler steps inside, the warm air wrapping around him. It smells like roasted beans and chocolate. He looks around, scanning the room for Mia. It doesn't take long before he spots her, sitting near the window, her eyes scanning the menu. She looks up when she catches sight of him, her face lighting up with that same easy smile that makes Tyler feel like maybe, just maybe, he can do this. Hey! Mia greets him, her voice warm and inviting. She stands up, and for a moment, Tyler forgets to speak, struck by the way she seems so at ease. He clears his throat, shaking himself out of the momentary daze. Hey, he replies, his voice a little rougher than he intends. Smooth, he thinks sarcastically. Nice first impression, Tyler. But Mia doesn't seem to mind. She smiles again, gesturing to the seat across from her. I already ordered. I hope you like caramel lattes. Tyler laughs, sitting down. I'm not picky. I'm pretty sure anything's better than what I make at home. The conversation flows easily from there, Mia talking about her plans for the semester and Tyler listening more than he speaks. He's still getting used to this whole being open thing, but with Mia, it doesn't feel forced. He can tell she's genuinely interested in what he has to say, and it makes him feel a little less like the guy who usually fades into the background. As the conversation continues, Tyler feels himself start to relax. The nervous energy from earlier fades, replaced by a sense of ease. This isn't so bad. Maybe he can do this. Maybe he can take these small steps and actually make a change. The first step might be small, but it's a step. And for Tyler, that's enough to make him think that maybe, just maybe, he can do more than just survive this year. Maybe he can actually live it. Tyler steps into the cafe, the warmth of the air hitting him like a wave as he surveys the room. It's small, intimate, with mismatched chairs and soft jazz playing faintly in the background. The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans fills the air, mingling with the faint scent of baked pastries. He scans the room, his eyes landing on Mia sitting by the window, her attention briefly focused on her phone. As soon as she sees him, she looks up, and her face lights up with that same easy grin that makes Tyler's chest tighten a little. Hey, you made it, she says, her voice warm with genuine pleasure, as she slides over in her seat to make room for him. The simple gesture catches him off guard, and for a second, he stands frozen at the edge of the table. She's really happy to see me, he thinks, the realization striking him in a way he wasn't expecting. Tyler pulls out the chair and sits down across from her. His palms feel a little clammy, and his mouth feels dry as the initial wave of excitement mingles with anxiety. I'm not good at this. I don't know what I'm doing, he thinks, but he shakes it off quickly. You're here. Just be normal. Just talk like you've talked to people before. Mia seems unfazed by his awkwardness, and Tyler finds himself relaxing, just a little bit. She leans back in her chair, folding her arms across her chest in a way that's casual, like she's completely at ease. So, how's the first week back? Been surviving the madness? Tyler lets out a small laugh, rubbing the back of his neck nervously.
Yeah.
Just about. I mean, school's the same as always, right? A little more stress, a little less motivation. She laughs along with him, her eyes bright and full of energy. I get that. I swear, every year I think it'll be different. Like this is going to be the year I don't procrastinate. And then, it's not. Tyler chuckles, nodding.
Yeah.
I've pretty much given up on resolutions. They just feel pointless. I mean, how many years in a row can you say, this year, I'm going to be better, and not do anything about it? Mia shrugs, her lips curling into a playful smile.
Yeah.
I get that. But, maybe it's not about being better in some huge, dramatic way. Maybe it's just about taking small steps, like getting out of your comfort zone, doing something different, and seeing where it leads. Tyler feels the slight tug of unease, but he quickly swallows it. She's right, he thinks. Small steps. This is a small step. Just sit here and talk. It's not that big of a deal. He nods slowly. I guess you've got a point. It's not like anything's going to change overnight, right? He takes a sip of his coffee, grateful for the momentary distraction. The warmth from the mug settles in his hands, and it gives him a little comfort, something to ground him in this unfamiliar moment. They continue talking about their classes, laughing over little anecdotes about teachers and assignments, and for the first time in a while, Tyler feels the heaviness in his chest lift just a bit. Why is this so easy with her? He wonders. There's no pressure, no forced small talk. It's just conversation. Casual. Real. He's not trying to impress her, and yet, there's a kind of unspoken connection forming between them, something that makes him feel like maybe, just maybe, this year could be different. As the minutes tick by, the conversation flows effortlessly. Tyler feels himself becoming more present, more engaged in what she's saying, and less wrapped up in his own insecurities. Mia's laughter is contagious, and her energy, bright, confident, but still grounded, makes him feel lighter. He finds himself asking questions, actually interested in the answers, and not just filling the space with empty words. They discuss New Year's plans, parties, resolutions, the usual clichés people make every year. When the topic turns to resolutions, Tyler can't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. I swear, every year it's the same, Tyler says, leaning back in his chair, swirling his coffee around in the cup. People are all, I'm going to hit the gym every day, and then by February, the gym is practically empty. Mia grins, her eyes twinkling with mischief.
Yeah.
I've definitely been that person. I think I've had the same resolution for the past 3 years. This year, I'll be more organized. And
Yeah.
that hasn't happened. Tyler snorts. Right? It's almost like we all agree to make resolutions that sound good, but no one actually expects to keep them. Mia shrugs, her smile turning more thoughtful. I think maybe the point isn't to keep them perfectly. It's just about trying, It's about stepping out of your comfort zone and seeing if you can actually make something stick. Even if it's small. Tyler looks at her, his chest tightening just slightly. She's a lot more optimistic than I am. How does she stay so hopeful all the time?
Yeah.
He says slowly, maybe you're right. But I don't know. I've never really been good at sticking with stuff. Mia tilts her head, giving him a searching look. Maybe that's because you're not really trying to change, though. Maybe you're just expecting yourself to magically be different. Change takes time, Tyler. It's not about suddenly becoming someone else, it's about small shifts. Her words hang in the air for a moment, and Tyler feels them settle inside him. It's a perspective he's never really thought about. Maybe I've been too hard on myself, he thinks, his mind racing. Maybe it's not about some grand transformation. Maybe it's just about showing up. About doing things differently, just a little bit at a time. The conversation shifts again, but this time, Tyler is quieter. As Mia talks about her plans for the upcoming semester, Tyler feels his mind wandering, but not in the usual anxious way. This time, it's not about doubts or fears or what might go wrong. It's about possibility. Could this be the year I actually try? Could I actually be the person I'm pretending to be? For the first time in a long while, Tyler feels the weight of the past few years lift off his shoulders, just a little bit. Maybe this year is different. Maybe, just maybe, I can change. Not all at once, but little by little. Mia's voice brings him back to the present. So, what about you? Any resolutions for this year? Or are you still against the whole idea? Tyler hesitates, but the words come easier now, no longer feeling like a lie. I guess I'll try to be more open. Take some risks. Actually show up when I say I will. Mia grins, her eyes softening with understanding. That's a good start. And for the first time, Tyler actually believes her.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 6, Old Habits, New Faces. Tyler sits at his desk, his textbooks open in front of him, but his focus is scattered. The words on the pages blur together as his mind keeps wandering. This is ridiculous, he thinks, his pencil tapping against the paper as his thoughts drift back to Mia. It's been a few days since their coffee date, but she's still occupying his thoughts more than he wants to admit. He's trying to be productive, to get through the mountain of assignments piling up, but every time he pauses for a breath, his mind goes back to her. What is this? Tyler wonders, resting his chin on his hand as he stares at his math homework. He never used to feel like this. He never used to get distracted by anyone. It's not like he's fallen head over heels or anything, he's not that guy. But Mia. There's something about her that's different. She's confident, sure, but there's an ease about her. She doesn't judge him, even when he doesn't know how to express himself. For once, he doesn't feel like he has to pretend to be someone he's not. He takes his phone from the desk, his fingers hovering over the screen. Should I text her again? He thinks. He knows it's a little silly, but he's almost eager to hear from her. The last time they texted, she had sent him a simple message, "Hope you're having a good day." It had been casual, friendly, but Tyler couldn't stop replaying the words in his head. Does she really mean it? Or is she just being nice? He sighs, running a hand through his hair. Get it together, Tyler. You're overthinking this. He puts the phone down, but it feels like a weight in his pocket, calling to him. A part of him wants to reach out, just to see how she's doing, but another part hesitates, unsure of what he's even looking for. I'm not that guy. I don't do this. I don't get attached. Yet, somehow, this feels different. Before he can overthink it any further, the bell rings, signaling the start of class. He grabs his bag and heads out the door, trying to shake off the feeling of restlessness that's been with him all week. As he walks through the crowded hallways of the school, the noise and chatter of students fades into the background, his thoughts still consumed by Mia. Can I really keep up this version of myself? He wonders. This version of me that actually talks to people, that opens up, that lets someone in? The idea of letting people in has always been terrifying for Tyler. His friends, his core group, have always been enough for him. They understood him, or at least they accepted his distance. But with Mia, it feels different. She doesn't expect anything from him, at least not in the way everyone else does. And yet, Tyler feels himself wanting to be a better version of himself for her. He reaches his locker and starts spinning the combination, his fingers moving mechanically. What's the catch? He thinks. What does she see in me? The sound of sneakers squeaking on the tile floor brings him out of his thoughts. Alex, his best friend, appears beside him, grinning like he knows something Tyler doesn't. Hey, man, Alex says, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. You're looking distracted. He raises an eyebrow. Are you texting Mia again? Tyler freezes, his heart racing for a split second. What? No. I mean, not really. I'm just thinking. Alex smirks, folding his arms across his chest. Huh. Sure. Thinking. He nudges Tyler with his elbow. So what's the deal? You like her, don't you? Tyler feels the heat rise in his cheeks, but he quickly tries to play it off. I don't know, man. We're just talking. It's not a big deal. Alex laughs.
Yeah.
Right. Just talking. You've been in a good mood lately. Haven't seen you this chipper since, well, ever. He winks. You know, you've got that look about you. Like you're actually excited about something. Tyler rolls his eyes, trying to brush it off. It's nothing. Just school stuff. You know how it is. Alex shrugs, clearly not buying it. Okay, if you say so. But, hey, man, you're not exactly fooling anyone. He gives Tyler a teasing shove before walking off toward his next class. Tyler watches his best friend leave, a sigh escaping his lips. Can't get anything past him, Tyler thinks. But he's not sure he minds. Alex has always been able to read him, whether he wants him to or not. It's something Tyler has grown used to, even if it's a little irritating at times. But the truth is, Tyler does feel a shift in himself lately. A subtle one, but enough to make him feel different. And he doesn't know how to handle it. What if I screw this up? The fear sneaks back in, like a familiar companion, always there to remind him of his failures. Practice feels longer than usual that afternoon. Tyler's mind isn't on his game, his body moves automatically, his muscles trained to do the work, but his thoughts keep drifting back to Mia. He doesn't even know why he's thinking about her so much. Is this what it feels like? He wonders. To actually care about someone? He's used to being alone, to living in his head, but Mia makes him want to get out of his own way. She challenges him without even trying, and that's what scares him the most. She's going to see right through me, he thinks, as he runs drills with the team. She's going to figure out that I don't have it all together, that I'm not as confident as I try to act. The whistle blows, signaling the end of practice, and Tyler pulls off his helmet, running a hand through his sweaty hair. The guys are talking, joking around, but Tyler's still lost in his own thoughts. He grabs his bag and heads to the locker room, his mind a whirlwind of uncertainty. What if he lets her in and everything falls apart? What if he screws this up and ends up right back where he started, alone, unsure, and stuck in the same old habits? He wants to be open, to be vulnerable, but the fear of rejection looms over him like a dark cloud. As Tyler finishes changing, he takes a deep breath, staring at his reflection in the mirror. What's the worst that could happen? He thinks. Maybe this year is different. Maybe I can change. Maybe, just maybe, I can be the person I'm trying to convince myself I am. With that thought, Tyler grabs his phone and pulls up Mia's contact. He hesitates for a moment, but then, with a deep breath, he types a simple message, "Hey, are you free to hang out this weekend?" For once, Tyler doesn't second-guess himself. He presses send. The cafeteria feels different today, brighter, somehow. Maybe it's the buzz of conversation, the smell of pizza wafting through the air, or the subtle change in the way Tyler sees things now. He's sitting with Mia and her friends, trying to navigate this new dynamic. It's a strange feeling for him, being away from his usual crowd, Alex and the guys, who he's known forever, the ones who understand his sarcasm and unspoken rules. But here, with Mia's friends, everything feels softer. Less predictable. They're chatting about something that Tyler can barely follow, a mix of inside jokes and casual banter, but he's laughing. He can't help it. The way Mia's friends tease each other, with no real malice, it feels comfortable. A kind of ease he never knew he needed. He tries to tell himself that he's just going along with it, that this is temporary, just something to pass the time until the bell rings. But deep down, something tells him this isn't as temporary as he wants it to be. "Tyler, you've been awfully quiet," Mia says with a grin, nudging him playfully with her elbow. "Cat got your tongue?" Tyler smirks, shaking his head.
Nah.
"Just taking it all in," he says, his voice laced with amusement. He feels like he's wearing a different version of himself, one that's still getting used to being a part of this. Mia raises an eyebrow. "You're not a big talker, huh?" He shrugs, a little embarrassed by how true it feels. "I don't know. I guess I'm just not used to this group." He gestures vaguely to the table, feeling his cheeks flush slightly. "I usually just hang with Alex and the guys." She tilts her head, her expression thoughtful.
Yeah.
"I know what you mean. I was the same way when I first moved here. Took a while to find my crowd." The way she says "my crowd" makes Tyler pause. It's not like the groups at his school are exclusive, but there's something about the way Mia fits in with her friends that makes him wonder if he could ever truly fit into something like this. Something that isn't just a habit, something new. The table erupts into laughter at some joke he didn't catch, and for a moment, Tyler finds himself just there. Not the outsider, not the one lingering on the edges, but in the middle, part of the rhythm. The joke doesn't even matter, but he's laughing anyway, because everyone else is. And for the first time in a while, Tyler realizes that maybe it's not always about fitting in perfectly, maybe it's just about showing up. His gaze shifts across the room, and he catches Alex's eye from across the cafeteria. Alex has this look on his face, one eyebrow raised, a mix of curiosity and amusement. Tyler can almost hear the unspoken question. "What the hell are you doing over there?" Tyler rolls his eyes, silently mouthing "I don't know" back at him, then turns his attention back to the group. There's a familiar pull in his chest, a quiet tug of loyalty to his usual routine, to his old friends, the ones who've seen him at his best and worst, the ones who don't make him second-guess himself. But for some reason, today, he doesn't feel as torn. He doesn't feel like he's betraying Alex by sitting with Mia. It's just different. And that's okay, right? Mia seems to sense the shift in his thoughts. So, are you going to that party on Saturday? She asks, her voice light but with a hint of curiosity. Tyler looks at her, unsure of how to answer. Another thing that's new. He's been to parties before, but they were always with his group, loud music, cheap drinks, and a lot of people he barely knew. It was easy to hide in the crowd, to not be noticed, to just go through the motions. But with Mia, it feels different. Maybe it's time to let go of the old routine and try something new. I don't know, Tyler says, his voice trailing off as he weighs the possibility. I guess, maybe I will. He surprises himself with the decision, but it feels right. Part of him still wants to say no, to fall back on his old excuses, but there's something about Mia's presence that makes him feel like he could take a step forward. Just one small step into the unknown. Well, if you do come, just know it won't be like one of those big, crazy parties, Mia says with a laugh. It's more laid back, more like, just hanging out. Nothing too wild. She leans in slightly, her voice quieter, as if sharing a secret. But I'd still love to see you there. Tyler nods, unsure how to respond, but grateful for the invitation. He never thought he'd be saying yes to something like this, hanging out with a group he doesn't fully know, spending time in a space where he doesn't have every detail figured out. But maybe that's exactly what he needs. As the bell rings, signaling the end of lunch, Tyler gathers his things, feeling a sense of calm that he's not used to. It's not the usual frantic rush to escape back to his comfort zone, to the familiar noise and chaos of his old routine. Instead, it's a quiet acknowledgement that maybe he's ready for something new. Maybe this is what change feels like, he thinks as he stands up and heads toward the door. He passes by Alex again on his way out, and this time, Alex doesn't give him that curious look. Instead, he just smirks, like he already knows what's going on in Tyler's head. Hey, Alex says, catching up with him. So, what's the deal with Mia? You gonna keep hanging out with her? Tyler shrugs, trying to play it cool. I don't know. Maybe. His heart skips a beat at the thought of spending more time with Mia, but he doesn't let it show. He's not ready to admit that he's already looking forward to it. She's fun to hang out with. Alex nods slowly, a grin playing at the corners of his lips.
Yeah.
I can tell. You're acting differently, man. Just don't get too caught up in it, okay? Tyler nods, a quiet acknowledgement that maybe Alex is right. Don't get too caught up in it, the voice in his head repeats, but the words don't feel as heavy as they used to. Maybe it's time to stop hiding behind old habits. Maybe it's time to see what this year could really bring. As he walks to his next class, Tyler feels a shift within himself, something subtle, but undeniable. He's ready for this. Ready for the changes that are already happening, for the new faces, the new experiences. For Mia. And for the first time in a long time, he feels like maybe this year really could be different.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 7, Breaking the Ice. The days have been blurring together in a way Tyler isn't sure how to make sense of. It's like he's stepping out of a fog, slowly, hesitantly, but every moment with Mia makes him feel like he's waking up. They've been spending more time together lately, doing simple things, walking around the park, grabbing coffee, sitting in the quiet of the library. Conversations flow easily between them, from casual chatter about school to deeper discussions about life, about fears, about dreams. But there's still this part of him that he can't shake, the part that pulls back when things start to get too real. When things start to matter. It's almost like he's constantly testing the waters, seeing how far he can go without truly diving in. He tells himself it's because he's not sure what he's doing, this is all new territory for him. But deep down, he knows the truth. He's scared. He's scared of letting go, of being vulnerable in a way that would expose the parts of him he's kept hidden for so long. Tyler's mind races as he walks beside Mia on one of their usual routes through the park, the chill of the evening air sharp against his skin. She's talking about something, he's not really listening, too caught up in his own thoughts. Why am I like this? He thinks, staring at the path ahead of him. Why can't I just be open? He feels the weight of her presence beside him, the easy way she talks to him, the way she makes him feel understood without judgment. But that's part of the problem. Mia doesn't judge him. She's open, unafraid to let him see the real her, and somehow that makes him feel even more distant. Tyler, Mia says, her voice gentle but steady. You okay? Tyler blinks, realizing he's been lost in his thoughts for a while now. He glances over at her, taking in the concerned look on her face.
Yeah.
Just thinking. Mia smiles softly, her eyes crinkling at the corners. I can tell. What about? He shrugs, trying to brush it off. Nothing. Just the usual. But Mia doesn't let it slide. She steps a little closer, her gaze unwavering. You don't have to keep everything inside, you know? There's an understanding in her voice that Tyler isn't used to. It's like she's able to see through him, see the cracks in the wall he's been building for so long. Tyler feels his chest tighten at her words. She's right, part of him thinks. But I'm not ready for this. I'm just not great at opening up, Mia, he says quietly, his voice almost a whisper. I don't know how to trust people with the stuff that's going on in my head. Mia stops walking, and for a moment, they stand there together, the sounds of the park fading into the background. She turns to face him fully, her expression soft but serious. You don't have to tell me everything right now, Tyler. But you can trust me. I'm not going anywhere. He looks down at his shoes, unsure of what to say. He wants to believe her, to believe that it's okay, to let his guard down, but the words don't come. The space between them feels wider now, though not because of anything physical. It's the distance he's put between himself and the rest of the world for so long, and it feels almost impossible to close that gap. Mia steps closer, her hand brushing against his arm in a gesture that's light but reassuring. You don't have to be afraid of letting people in, she says softly, her voice quiet but firm. It's okay to need someone. Tyler freezes at the touch, his body tense as his thoughts scatter. He pulls his arm back instinctively, the sudden warmth of her hand on his skin making him feel exposed. His heart starts to race, a mix of panic and longing flooding through him. Why is it so hard to just let go? Mia watches him for a moment, waiting, her gaze steady but patient. You don't have to do this alone, you know, she adds, her voice soft but insistent. Tyler's breath hitches, and for a second, he almost wants to say something, to let her in, to admit that he's scared, that he's always been scared of letting anyone get too close. But the words get stuck, tangled up in his throat. The weight of the vulnerability is too much. He doesn't know how to just be open. How to let someone see all the parts of him he's hidden for so long. I can't do this, he thinks, feeling his chest tighten. Not now, not with her. I'm not like you, Mia, he says finally, his voice tight, as if the words are being forced out. You're so sure of yourself. You don't have walls around you, like I do. Mia tilts her head, studying him closely. Maybe it just looks that way, she says gently. But everyone has walls, Tyler. I do too. I'm just trying to find ways to break them down. It's a process. And it's okay if you're not ready. But I'm here. Tyler swallows hard, feeling the weight of her words, the sincerity in her voice. But the fear still lingers. What if he lets her in, and it doesn't work out? What if he gets hurt? What if she sees me as weak? I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, he says, his voice barely a whisper. I don't know if I can trust anyone like that. Mia doesn't pull away. She just nods, her expression thoughtful. I get it, she says quietly. But just know, you don't have to do everything all at once. You can take it slow. I'm not asking for all of you, Tyler. Just a little piece. Tyler feels the tug in his chest again, the overwhelming desire to believe her, to believe that maybe this time, maybe she can be different. Maybe this time, he won't be alone. But the walls in his heart are tall, and they've been standing for so long. The thought of letting them crumble feels too risky, too raw. He doesn't know if he can handle it. I'll think about it, he says quietly, his voice barely audible in the cool night air. It's the best he can offer right now, and part of him knows that's all he can do. Mia's smile is small, but it's warm, and Tyler feels something inside of him shift, just a little. That's all I can ask for, she says, her voice gentle. They stand there for a moment longer, the silence between them comfortable in a way that Tyler isn't used to. For once, he doesn't feel the need to rush away, to fill the space with something, anything, to break the tension. He's not ready to open up completely, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, he's starting to believe that he could. Tyler wakes up the next day with a weight on his chest that feels both heavier and lighter at the same time. Mia's words keep echoing in his head, you don't have to be afraid of letting people in. They seem simple, but they've unlocked something in him, a recognition that he's been carrying a lot more than just baggage. There are years of expectations he's placed on himself, fears of rejection, and an overwhelming sense of failure that's been silently building in the background of his life. It's like he's been moving through life with blinders on, never quite realizing how much these walls were shaping his every move, every interaction. He stares at the ceiling, the silence of the room thick around him. What if he's been wrong all this time? What if the walls he's built aren't keeping people out, they're keeping him from truly living? From truly experiencing anything real? And what if, by holding on to all that fear, he's been stopping himself from growing, from learning how to be vulnerable and open? The thought nags at him, a whisper in his mind that he can't ignore. Maybe it's time to let go. But even as the words form in his mind, doubt creeps in, twisting his resolve. What if I try and fail? What if he's not capable of being open? What if Mia doesn't want to deal with all of his baggage? What if, in the end, he's just not worth the effort? What if everything falls apart, and he's left alone again, with nothing but the remnants of his own fear and regret? He shakes his head, trying to quiet the thoughts, but they don't go away. Instead, they fester, growing louder and more insistent. Maybe he's just not meant for this. Maybe it's better to keep playing it safe, to keep his walls up and protect himself from what could go wrong. But then he thinks about Mia, how easy it's been to talk to her, how she's never pressured him, how she's shown him that it's okay to be real. Maybe she sees something in me that I don't even see in myself, he wonders. Tyler grabs his phone and starts scrolling absent-mindedly, but his finger stops on Mia's contact. His heart starts to race. He wants to call her. He wants to tell her that he's ready, that he's willing to open up, to try, to give something real a shot. But his hands are shaking, and his stomach feels tight, like the weight of the world is pressing down on him. He hesitates for a long moment, staring at her name on the screen. What if this is too much? What if she doesn't feel the same way? What if she thinks I'm too much? He forces himself to take a deep breath. This is what he wants, right? To change, to be different, to let go of the fear that's been holding him back. He's got to take that first step, even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it's terrifying. With a deep breath, he taps the phone icon, his heart racing as the call connects. It rings a few times, and he feels a sharp pang of nervousness, like the seconds are dragging on forever. What's he even going to say? What if he messes this up? What if she's already over him? The phone clicks, and Mia's voice comes through, warm and comforting. Hey, Tyler. Hey, he says, his voice coming out a little hoarser than he intended. He clears his throat. I was just thinking about what you said last night. There's a slight pause on the other end of the line.
Yeah.
Tyler stands up, pacing around his room. I think I'm ready to let go. Let go of all the stuff that's been holding me back. The fear, the walls I've built up. He stops pacing, running a hand through his hair, unsure of how to continue. His mind is racing, and the words don't come out the way he wants them to. I don't know if I can do it right away, but I want to try. I don't want to keep being the same person I've been. I want to be more real, I guess. With you. With myself. There's silence on the other end of the line for a moment, and Tyler feels his heart pounding in his chest. Has he said too much? Was this a mistake? Then Mia speaks, her voice soft but full of understanding. Tyler, she says, her words gentle, you don't have to do everything all at once. It's okay to take your time. I'm not going anywhere. Tyler's shoulders relax slightly, though the weight of the moment is still heavy. He lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. I don't know where to start, you know? I don't even know if I'm ready to let everything go. You don't have to do it all at once, Mia reassures him again. But I think the first step is just admitting it, admitting that you want to change. And you just did that. Tyler laughs softly, a nervous chuckle, as the tension in his chest begins to loosen just a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess so. Thanks for listening. And be patient with me. Of course, she replies, her voice light but sincere. I'm here, Tyler. Whenever you're ready, we can take things slow together. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking for a little piece of you. Tyler feels a sense of relief flood through him, as if a heavy burden has been lifted off his chest. The weight that had felt so suffocating earlier now feels a little more manageable. He might not have all the answers, and he might not be ready to open up completely, but he's taken the first step. And that's enough for now. Okay, he says, the words feeling like a promise. I'm ready. They talk a little longer, the conversation flowing more easily now, and when they finally hang up, Tyler feels a sense of calm wash over him. He hasn't fixed everything, but he's done something. He's broken through a small part of the wall he's been building for years. And maybe that's all it takes, one small step at a time.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 8, The Fear of Change. Tyler sits in his room, staring at the half-finished assignment on his desk. He should be focusing on schoolwork, should be diving into the pages of textbooks and solving equations like he's done 1,000 times before. But today, his thoughts keep drifting back to something bigger, something deeper than anything school could offer him. He's been making changes, small ones, but they feel like seismic shifts inside of him. The problem is, Tyler isn't sure he's ready for those shifts. He's been used to living in the same way for so long, behind walls, keeping his distance from everything that could hurt him, that now that the walls are coming down, he's not sure who he is without them. Change is supposed to be a good thing, right? It's supposed to be a fresh start, an opportunity for growth. At least, that's what people tell him. But the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that change isn't just about outward actions, it's internal too. It's about confronting the things that have been buried for so long, the things he's avoided, and the things he's been afraid to face. And for the first time, he feels the weight of it all. The real weight of change isn't just in doing new things, it's in feeling things he's buried under layers of indifference. It's in letting himself feel. Mia has been so patient with him. She's encouraged him to open up, to be real with himself and with her. And every time she looks at him with those eyes that make him feel like she sees him for who he really is, it makes him want to be better, to be more than the person he's been. But the truth is, Tyler doesn't know how to be that person. He's spent so many years protecting himself from disappointment, from rejection, that he's forgotten how to feel fully. He looks at his phone, the screen lit up with a new text from Mia. "How are you doing? You seem quiet lately. Want to talk?" He types a response, then deletes it. How do you even start a conversation when you don't know what you're feeling? How do you tell someone that everything feels like it's shifting underneath you, and you're just trying to keep your balance? Tyler leans back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. What if I let myself be open, and it all falls apart? What if the walls I've been so careful to build come crashing down, and everything I've been hiding from comes flooding back in? He's afraid that if he lets himself truly feel, he'll be exposed, vulnerable in a way that he can't take back. Maybe he'll lose the control he's had for so long. But at the same time, there's a nagging thought at the back of his mind that refuses to be ignored. What if staying in my comfort zone is only going to make me feel more empty? What if, in trying to protect himself, he's only been running away from the things that could truly make him happy? The thought makes his chest tighten. The more he pushes it away, the stronger it gets. Tyler's always been good at running from things, at shutting down when it gets too difficult to confront what's inside. But now that Mia's here, now that she's shown him how it feels to be open, to be real, he's starting to wonder if maybe it's time to stop running. But change, real change, feels like standing at the edge of a cliff and wondering whether it's worth the fall. His mind races with 1,000 possibilities, none of them comforting. What if he lets down his guard and finds out that it was better to stay in his little bubble? What if, in trying to be someone different, he loses himself entirely? He can almost hear his old self, his safe self, telling him to stick with what he knows, to stay small, to keep his emotions in check and avoid anything that feels too risky. But is that really living? Is that really what he wants? Tyler's phone buzzes again. This time it's a call from Mia. He hesitates, staring at the screen. His gut tells him to answer, to talk it through with her. But the fear of being exposed, the fear of saying something that might make him look weak, keeps his thumb hovering over the screen. He's not used to this level of vulnerability. He's never had to face his fears like this, not directly. But Mia's patient. She's never pressured him, and she's never judged him for the way he is. He swipes the screen, bringing the phone to his ear. "Hey," he says, his voice sounding more uncertain than he intends. "Hey, you okay?" Mia's voice is soft, full of concern. "You've been quieter than usual. I just wanted to check in." Tyler stares out the window, watching as the world moves around him, but he feels frozen in place.
Yeah.
"I'm okay. Just thinking a lot, I guess." Mia laughs, a soft, easy sound. "I know that feeling. You've been quiet in class too. Just wanted to make sure you're good. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." But the sincerity in her voice makes it harder to brush it off. He can hear the care there, and it makes something inside of him stir, a mix of gratitude and something else he can't quite name. Tyler presses his lips together, trying to gather his thoughts, but they're all over the place. He wants to tell her what's been going on inside, but he doesn't know where to start. The words feel too big, too heavy. I don't know if I'm ready to change, he says, finally letting the words tumble out. I mean, I know I've been trying to, but it's hard. I don't know if I can. I've spent so long hiding from everything, keeping my distance, and now it's like, I don't even know who I am without all that distance. Mia's silence on the other end of the line is comforting, like she's giving him space to figure it out. Tyler, it's okay, she says finally. Change doesn't happen all at once. And you don't have to have it all figured out. But I know you're stronger than you think. You're not alone in this. You've got me. Tyler feels a lump form in his throat, but he swallows it down. For the first time in a long time, he feels like maybe he doesn't have to have everything figured out. Maybe he doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe it's okay to just try. I just don't want to mess it all up, he admits. I don't want to get my hopes up and then have it all fall apart. Mia's voice is steady, reassuring. You're not going to mess it up. And even if things get tough, we'll figure it out together. You don't have to do this alone. Tyler breathes out slowly, the tension easing in his chest, just a little. He's not sure what's coming next, but for the first time, he feels like maybe it's okay to be uncertain. Maybe it's okay to take it one step at a time, instead of trying to control everything all at once. Thanks, he says quietly. I needed to hear that. You don't have to thank me, Mia replies softly. I'm here, Tyler. You don't have to be perfect for me. You just have to be you. Tyler leans back in his chair, the weight of the conversation still settling in his chest, but now it feels lighter. He's not sure where this journey is going, or how it's all going to turn out, but for the first time in a long time, he feels like maybe, just maybe, it's worth it to face his fears. Maybe it's time to stop running from what he's afraid of. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows across the park as Tyler walks along the familiar path. He's not sure what he's trying to find, maybe just a moment of peace, a space to breathe without the weight of expectations or the constant questioning of what's next. His mind has been swirling with doubts and fears about change, and though Mia's words still echo in his mind, Tyler isn't sure how to move forward. Change feels like standing at the edge of something vast, like jumping into the unknown without a parachute. But something inside him whispers that it's time to take the leap. As Tyler meanders through the park, his gaze catching the simple beauty of the world around him, the rustling leaves, the occasional dog running after a stick, the families gathered on picnic blankets, he tries to quiet his inner storm. That's when he hears a familiar voice. Hey, man. Are you good? Tyler stops, blinking in surprise. Alex stands a few feet away, leaning against a tree with his hands in his pockets. His brow is furrowed, and he gives Tyler a look that's part concern, part curiosity. Tyler opens his mouth to respond, but the words feel stuck. He hasn't seen Alex much lately, he's been preoccupied with Mia, with his own thoughts, with the changes happening within him. I'm trying to be, Tyler says, his voice sounding more uncertain than he intended. Alex doesn't push. Instead, he shrugs, his expression softening. I get it, he says simply. You've been acting a little different lately. He eyes Tyler up and down, as if trying to decipher him. Is this about the New Year's resolution stuff? Or is it more than that? Tyler hesitates, feeling a strange mixture of frustration and relief. He's always been able to talk to Alex, but this is different. He's not sure how to explain the whirlwind inside his head, the strange sense of awakening that Mia has triggered in him. His own self-doubt still gnaws at him, but for some reason, Alex's presence feels calming. It's like a reminder that no matter how much he's changing, some things, like his friendship with Alex, are constant. I don't know, Tyler says, shaking his head. It's like, I've been trying to let go of some stuff, you know? But it's hard. There's so much baggage. And I don't know if I can actually change. What if it's too late? Alex doesn't seem surprised by Tyler's words. Instead, he pushes himself off the tree and walks over to sit on the park bench nearby. Man, you're not the only one with baggage. Believe me, Alex says with a wry grin. But here's the thing, I think it's time to let go. Tyler sits down next to him, the weight of Alex's words sinking in. Let go. Let go of the fear, the doubt, the hesitation. It sounds simple when Alex says it like that, but Tyler knows it's not. He's spent so long guarding himself, keeping his heart safe from disappointment, that the idea of truly letting go is terrifying. What if it all falls apart? What if being open to change makes him vulnerable in ways he's not ready for? But as Tyler looks at his best friend, who's been through his own share of struggles, his own battles with fear and uncertainty, something clicks. Alex isn't perfect. He's made mistakes, messed up, just like everyone else. But he's also learned to keep going, to face his fears head-on, even when it's scary. I don't know, man, Tyler says, running a hand through his hair. It's just, everything's changing, and I don't know if I'm ready for it. Alex shrugs again, his expression unreadable. Who is ever ready? You just gotta do it. The only way you're gonna figure it out is by trying. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, it's never gonna come. And honestly, sometimes that's the scariest part, the unknown. But it's also the most exciting part. Tyler laughs, though it's a quiet sound, more out of relief than humor. He's not used to hearing Alex speak with such clarity. It's not like his friend has suddenly turned into a philosopher, but at this moment, Alex seems to get it. The weight Tyler has been carrying doesn't feel as heavy when he realizes that Alex, of all people, understands the struggle. They sit in silence for a while, watching the world go by, teenagers riding their bikes, parents chatting on the benches, a couple walking hand in hand. Tyler breathes in the fresh air, feeling it fill his lungs. It's a small thing, but it feels like a step forward. Like he's taking a deep breath before diving into the unknown. I've always been afraid of change, Tyler admits after a long pause. I thought if I just kept doing the same thing, if I didn't let anyone in, then I wouldn't get hurt. But now, I don't know. I don't know if I can keep living like this. Alex turns his head to look at him, a serious expression on his face. You can't keep running from it forever, dude. Change is inevitable. You can't control it, but you can control how you respond to it. You don't have to have all the answers, but you can start small. Letting go doesn't mean completely losing yourself, it just means letting yourself grow, step by step. Tyler nods, the pieces of the puzzle slowly starting to click into place. Maybe Alex is right. Maybe it's not about diving in headfirst and hoping for the best. Maybe it's about letting go of the fear, inch by inch. Maybe it's about opening up to new experiences, even if they scare him. Maybe it's about being willing to try, even when he's not sure of the outcome. Thanks, man, Tyler says, his voice quieter now, but with more certainty than before. I think I needed to hear that. Alex smirks, giving him a sideways glance. Anytime, bro. Just don't start getting all deep on me. I don't need that kind of pressure. He nudges Tyler with his elbow, and Tyler laughs, the tension in his chest easing. As they sit there for a while longer, talking about everything and nothing, Tyler feels something shift inside him. He still has doubts. He still has fears. But maybe that's okay. Maybe it's okay to take things one step at a time, to face the fear of change instead of running from it. For the first time in a long time, Tyler feels like maybe he's ready. Ready to let go. Ready to face what's ahead. Maybe change doesn't have to be so scary. Maybe, just maybe, it's the only way forward. As they stand up to leave, Alex claps him on the back. "Don't forget," he says with a grin, "you've got this. And if you don't, I'll be here to make sure you do." Tyler smiles, feeling lighter than he has in weeks. Maybe it's not about having it all figured out. Maybe it's just about being willing to try. And with that thought, he takes the first step forward, ready to see where this change will take him.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 9, The Moment of Truth. The days have been passing by in a blur, a mixture of quiet moments with Mia and bursts of self-reflection that leave Tyler feeling both unsettled and strangely at peace. He's been spending more time with her, letting down his guard a little more each time. And with each conversation, each shared laugh, something shifts inside him. The walls he's spent so long building around his heart seem to be crumbling, brick by brick. It's a terrifying feeling, yet strangely liberating. Tyler's starting to believe that maybe he's not as broken as he once thought. Maybe there's something worth saving, even if it feels fragile, like a delicate thread holding everything together. He doesn't know exactly when it happened, when Mia became more than just a passing interest, when she became someone who made him feel understood, even when he wasn't sure how to articulate his own feelings. But it's happening. And that, in itself, is both thrilling and terrifying. But even as he lets himself get closer to her, a quiet fear gnaws at him, a fear he can't shake. What if he lets her in, and she doesn't like what she finds? What if the messy, broken parts of him are too much for her to handle? What if all this progress, all this growth, is just a fleeting moment, and once she sees the real him, she'll walk away? These thoughts linger in the back of his mind, a constant whisper of doubt that refuses to be silenced. But as he spends more time with Mia, he can't help but feel a growing connection. It's not just about chemistry or the sparks that fly when their hands brush, it's something deeper. There's a tenderness in the way she listens, a patience in the way she waits for him to open up, and a kindness that Tyler can't help but be drawn to. That evening, as they walk through the park together, Tyler feels a sense of calm wash over him. The sun is just starting to set, casting a warm glow across the path ahead of them. They've been walking for what feels like hours, talking about everything and nothing, laughing at inside jokes and sharing quiet moments of understanding. For once, Tyler doesn't feel like he has to be anyone else. With Mia, he can simply be. But then, as they walk side by side, Mia turns to him, her expression soft but serious. "What are you afraid of, Tyler?" The question hangs in the air, soft but piercing, like an arrow aimed straight at his heart. Tyler stops walking, his feet suddenly feeling heavy. He's never been good at talking about his fears, not the deep, raw ones. The ones that come from a place of vulnerability. He's spent so long keeping them buried, pushing them down so they don't get in the way. But Mia's question lingers, and for the first time, Tyler doesn't feel the need to run from it. Tyler starts, but the words feel thick in his throat. He shifts his weight, trying to find the right words, but they all feel inadequate. How do you explain something so complicated? How do you tell someone that you're afraid of losing them before you even really have them? "I'm afraid of everything," Tyler finally says, his voice quieter than he intended. He meets Mia's gaze, and there's a vulnerability in his eyes that he hasn't allowed himself to show before. But mostly, I'm afraid of losing you. The words are out before he can stop them, and they hang between them like a fragile thread. For a moment, everything is still. Tyler's heart beats loudly in his chest, the silence stretching on as he waits for her response. He doesn't know why he said it, he just knows that he couldn't keep hiding behind the walls anymore. Maybe he's not ready for everything, but he's ready for this. He's ready to be honest, to let someone see him, flaws and all. Mia doesn't say anything at first. She just looks at him, her eyes searching his face, as if trying to gauge the truth in his words. The seconds feel like hours as Tyler stands there, exposed and vulnerable, waiting for her to say something, anything. He half expects her to laugh it off, to brush it aside like it's no big deal. But she doesn't. Instead, she reaches out and gently places her hand on his arm. The touch is light, comforting, and for a moment, it feels like everything slows down. The world fades away, leaving only the two of them in this small, quiet moment. You don't have to be afraid of that, Mia says softly. I'm not going anywhere, Tyler. The words hit him like a wave, and for a brief moment, Tyler feels a mix of relief and disbelief. He doesn't know if he's ready to believe it, if he's ready to trust that someone might actually want to stay, but the sincerity in her voice makes it harder to ignore. Maybe it's not about being afraid of losing her. Maybe it's about trusting that, even in his moments of fear and uncertainty, he doesn't have to do this alone. He exhales slowly, a weight he didn't realize he was carrying lifting off his chest. For the first time, he feels like he can breathe again. He doesn't have to have all the answers. He doesn't have to be perfect. All he has to do is show up, be present, be honest, and let things unfold the way they're meant to. I don't know how to do this, Tyler admits, his voice trembling slightly, but there's a quiet strength behind it now. But I want to try. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Mia gives him a small, reassuring smile. You don't have to have it all figured out, she says. We can take it one step at a time, together. Tyler's heart skips a beat at her words. Together. It's a simple promise, but it means everything. For once, he doesn't feel like he's walking this path alone. Maybe he's not ready to let go of all his fears, but with Mia by his side, maybe he doesn't have to. The park around them feels quieter now, more intimate, as if the world has faded into the background. Tyler takes a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. He's still scared. He's still unsure of what comes next. But for the first time, he feels like he might be able to face it, not on his own, but with someone who understands, who's willing to walk beside him, no matter what. And as they continue their walk through the park, hand in hand, Tyler begins to realize that maybe this is what change feels like. Not the big, dramatic moments, but the small, quiet steps that build up over time. Maybe, just maybe, he's starting to believe that he can let someone in. And maybe, just maybe, that's all he needs to move forward. The air around them feels lighter now, as though the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for Tyler to speak. Mia's hand remains warm in his, her touch grounding him in the moment. It's the kind of silence that isn't heavy or uncomfortable but rather full of unspoken understanding, a quiet space where words are no longer necessary. Tyler swallows hard, the weight of his own emotions pushing against his chest. He's been carrying them for so long, his fears, his doubts, his insecurities, that the idea of letting them go feels almost impossible. But as Mia waits patiently, he knows that he can't keep hiding from them. It's time to face them, to say the words out loud, even if they're difficult to speak. I'm afraid of change, Tyler finally admits, his voice barely above a whisper. The words hang in the air between them, thick with the truth he's been running from. I'm afraid of losing myself in it. I don't know what I'll be like if I let go of all the things that have held me together for so long. Mia doesn't immediately respond, but Tyler can feel the weight of her gaze on him. She doesn't judge him, she doesn't try to fix him. She just listens, her presence steady and unyielding, like a quiet anchor in the storm of his thoughts. You don't lose yourself by opening up, Tyler, Mia says softly, her voice full of warmth and reassurance. You find yourself. The words land like a gentle wave against his heart, washing away some of the fear he's held onto for so long. He wants to believe her, wants to believe that opening up, letting go of the past, and embracing the uncertainty of the future can lead to something better. He's spent so much of his life hiding behind walls, afraid that if he let anyone in, they'd see the parts of him that were broken. The parts he couldn't fix. But now, standing here with Mia, he's starting to realize that maybe the broken pieces don't need to be fixed. Maybe they just need to be seen, accepted, and loved. Tyler's heart skips a beat as Mia's words sink in. He feels a stirring deep inside him, a quiet hope that he hasn't felt in a long time. Maybe this is what it feels like to let go of fear, to stop holding on to the things that have kept him small and stuck. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop being afraid. He takes a deep breath, the weight on his chest lifting just a little. He's not sure what the future holds, not sure what this new version of himself will look like, but for the first time in a long time, he feels a sense of calm settle over him. Maybe this is the beginning of something new, something he's never allowed himself to fully experience before. As the new year unfolds, Tyler makes a promise to himself. It's not a resolution, not something grand or life-altering, but a simple commitment to take things one day at a time. He promises to embrace the uncertainty, to take chances, and to let go of the fear that's held him back for so long. He promises to stop being afraid of change, to stop running from it, and to start living in a way that feels real and true to who he is, not who he's been trying to be. Mia's words echo in his mind, you find yourself. It's a strange thought, one that makes Tyler feel like he's standing on the edge of something new, something bigger than himself. He doesn't know exactly what that looks like, doesn't know where this journey will take him, but for the first time, he feels ready to find out. They walk together in silence for a while, hand in hand, the quiet of the park surrounding them. The sun has dipped below the horizon now, leaving behind the soft glow of twilight. Tyler feels lighter, more at ease than he has in a long time. It's not that all of his fears are gone, or that everything suddenly makes sense, but for the first time in ages, he's allowing himself to believe in something other than the walls he's built around himself. He's allowing himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he can be the person he's always wanted to be. Mia looks up at him as they walk, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. You okay? She asks, her voice soft and gentle, as though she already knows the answer. Tyler nods, squeezing her hand.
Yeah.
I think I'm starting to be. And with that simple exchange, the weight of all his past fears feels just a little bit lighter. He's still afraid, still unsure of what's to come, but for the first time in a long time, he feels like he's not facing it alone. With Mia by his side, he feels like maybe he can take on whatever comes next, whether it's facing the unknown, taking risks, or simply being the person he's always wanted to be. As the night settles around them, Tyler realizes that this is only the beginning. The new year is still young, and so is he. There's a world of possibilities ahead of him, a future that's no longer defined by fear or doubt. It's defined by what he's willing to embrace, what he's willing to change, and who he's willing to become. And with Mia's hand in his, he feels ready to take that first step into the unknown.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 10, Rising Above. As the school year moves forward, Tyler finds himself adjusting in ways he never thought possible. Each day feels like a small victory, like a layer of uncertainty peeling away, leaving behind something more authentic, something more real. The anxiety that used to dominate his thoughts, that constant hum of worry in the background of his mind, has started to fade. It's not gone entirely, but it's quieter now, more manageable. He feels more at ease in his own skin, more at peace with the person he's becoming. Mia has been a steady presence through all of this. Her support has been unwavering, her belief in him almost contagious. She's shown him that vulnerability isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. He's slowly realizing that letting his guard down, sharing his true thoughts, and showing his real self to others isn't weakness. It's strength. And, in a way, it's liberating. It's like he's finally stepping out of the shadows he's hidden in for so long. Today, as Tyler walks into school, he feels something he hasn't felt in a while: purpose. It's not a grand, life-changing moment, but it's significant to him. There's a sense of quiet confidence in his step, a certain resolve that wasn't there before. He no longer feels like he's just drifting through life, waiting for things to happen. He feels like he's actively participating in it, like he's not just watching from the sidelines but actually living in the game. It's a subtle shift, but it's real. He walks toward his first class, his mind focused and clear, when he sees a group of students crowded around the hallway. They're laughing, chatting, and something in the dynamic catches his attention. For a moment, Tyler feels like an outsider again, as though he doesn't quite fit in with this crowd. It's a brief flicker of insecurity, but it's enough to make him pause, to question if he's really changed at all. What if it's all just temporary? What if this new version of himself falls apart when faced with something challenging? Tyler shakes his head, pushing the thought away. He knows he can't keep worrying about the what-ifs. There will always be doubts, always be moments where the old fears creep back in, but the difference now is that he's no longer willing to let them control him. He's come too far to fall back into those old patterns. As he continues walking toward his classroom, he sees Mia waiting outside, her familiar smile lighting up her face when she spots him. There's something about her presence that always makes him feel grounded, like he's exactly where he's supposed to be. He walks up to her, a genuine smile spreading across his face as they exchange a quick greeting. "Hey, you look like you're in a good mood," Mia says, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. She always seems to notice when something shifts within him, as though she can sense the subtle changes before he even acknowledges them himself. Tyler shrugs, trying to downplay it. "I don't know. Just feeling good today, I guess." Mia nods knowingly. "I can tell. You seem different lately, more comfortable in your own skin." The words resonate with him in a way that surprises him. Comfortable in my own skin. It's not something he ever thought he'd say about himself, but there it is. He's not perfect, and he's still learning, but he's becoming someone he's starting to like. Someone who isn't constantly battling with his own self-doubt. He's starting to believe in his own potential. They walk into class together, exchanging small talk, and Tyler finds that even the usual nervousness he feels about the first few minutes of the day is gone. He's more present, more in tune with the people around him. He's not worried about how he's coming across, not consumed by the fear of judgment. He's just here. It's a simple feeling, but it's a revelation for him. As the day progresses, Tyler's mind stays clear and focused. He finds himself actively participating in class discussions, contributing his thoughts without second-guessing himself. In the past, he would have stayed quiet, afraid of saying the wrong thing or being dismissed. But now, he's realizing that his voice matters. His opinions are worth sharing. During lunch, he meets up with Alex, who raises an eyebrow as he sits down. "Look at you," Alex says, giving Tyler a once-over. "You're actually smiling. What's going on?" Tyler laughs, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I don't know. I guess I'm just figuring things out. Things are starting to make a little more sense." Alex seems to study him for a moment, a thoughtful expression on his face. Well, you definitely seem different. It's good to see you like this. Tyler nods, grateful for the honesty in Alex's words. They've been friends for years, but there's something new about their dynamic now, too. Tyler's not the same person he was when they first met, and neither is Alex. There's a quiet understanding between them, an unspoken acknowledgement that they've both changed in ways that are difficult to describe, but deeply felt. Yeah, I think I am, Tyler admits. And it feels good. As they continue to talk, Tyler realizes that, for the first time in a long time, he's not afraid of what comes next. The fear is still there, of course, it's always there, lurking in the background, but he's learned how to move through it, how to keep going even when the uncertainty feels overwhelming. He's not perfect, and he never will be, but he's learning to accept that. He's learning to accept himself. By the time the final bell rings and the school day ends, Tyler feels a sense of accomplishment. It's not about grades or achievements, it's about the internal shift that's taken place. He feels like he's standing taller, more confident in who he is. There's still a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long time, he's not afraid to walk it. As he walks out of the school building, Mia waiting for him outside, Tyler feels a quiet pride in himself. He's not the person he once was, and while there's still work to be done, he's finally starting to believe in the possibility of change. He's starting to believe in himself. And for Tyler, that's a victory in itself. Hey, Mia greets him with a smile. How was your day? Good, Tyler says, his voice steady. Really good. He pauses, looking at her with a newfound sense of certainty. I think I'm finally starting to figure things out. Mia's smile widens, and Tyler realizes that, in a way, he's figured out something that's been eluding him for years. He's no longer afraid of change. He's ready for it. The cafeteria buzzes with the usual noise of students talking, laughing, and shuffling between tables, but Tyler can't help but feel a shift within himself. It's subtle but noticeable, like he's stepping into a version of himself he hadn't known was possible. His body feels lighter, his thoughts clearer, and his smile, genuine. As he sits down with Mia, he can't help but notice how at ease he feels. It's no longer just about fitting in, it's about being himself, fully and unapologetically. And for the first time, he doesn't feel the need to hide. Mia sits across from him, her eyes scanning his face as if trying to decipher some unspoken change. You're different, she says, raising an eyebrow, the playful hint in her voice drawing him in. Tyler laughs, unsure of how to respond, the words coming out in an almost surprised tone. I guess I am, he says, leaning back slightly in his chair, feeling a mix of pride and nervousness. It's strange, this feeling of being noticed, not for something he's tried to achieve, but for something he's allowed to happen within himself. Mia gives him a knowing smile, her gaze soft. It's a good difference. I like it. Her words hang in the air between them, warm and encouraging, but Tyler can't help but feel a sense of vulnerability in them. It's not just about changing on the outside, he realizes. He's not just improving his confidence or gaining control of his anxiety. He's becoming someone who is learning to trust himself, someone who is capable of embracing the unknown. And, for the first time, he's not running from it. As they talk about their plans for the upcoming break, Tyler's mind begins to wander. He finds himself imagining what it would be like to fully step outside his comfort zone. The thought of it excites him in ways he didn't expect. For so long, he's been the one holding himself back, afraid to take risks, to put himself in situations that felt uncertain. But what if it's those very risks that lead him to something greater? What if embracing the unknown is exactly what he needs to grow? Mia's voice breaks through his thoughts, bringing him back to the present. So, New Year's Eve. Are you coming to the party at Sara's house? Tyler feels a flicker of hesitation. He's always avoided big social gatherings like the one Mia's inviting him to, never quite comfortable in large crowds, unsure of how to interact with people outside his usual circle. He can already imagine the anxiety creeping in, the small talk, the awkward pauses, the pressure to fit in. But there's something different now. He's changed, and he knows that avoiding this opportunity would be a step backward. He takes a deep breath, the excitement of doing something new battling with his natural fear. His mind races, caught between the what-ifs and the potential for something amazing. It's a moment of truth, a decision that could open the door to something unexpected. For the first time in a long time, Tyler realizes that this is the moment where he can choose to embrace the unknown. "I'll go," he says, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. The words feel both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time, but as soon as he says them, a weight lifts from his chest. No more second-guessing. No more holding back. Mia's face lights up with excitement. "Really? I'm so glad. It's going to be so much fun. I promise you won't regret it." Tyler smiles, the nervousness still there but accompanied by a new sense of determination. For so long, he's been running from situations like this, convincing himself that it wasn't worth the stress, that he'd be fine without them. But now, he realizes that avoiding these moments has only kept him stagnant. It's time to stop letting fear control his decisions. As the conversation shifts to other topics, Tyler finds himself more present than he's been in a long time. He listens to Mia with a sense of curiosity, engaging in their usual banter, but now there's an undercurrent of something deeper, something more authentic. He's not pretending to be someone he's not, and he's not forcing himself into a mold he doesn't fit. He's just Tyler. And, for once, that's enough. The rest of the day passes in a blur of classes, brief exchanges with friends, and the steady hum of his thoughts. But even as he walks through the hallways, the anticipation of the New Year's Eve party lingers in his mind. He can't shake the excitement of stepping into a new experience, of taking a chance on something unfamiliar. The nerves are still there, but they're different now, they feel like a challenge, not a roadblock. That evening, as he gets ready for the party, Tyler stands in front of the mirror, adjusting his shirt and smoothing down his hair. For a moment, he feels a wave of self-doubt. What if I'm not dressed right? What if I don't know what to say? What if I embarrass myself? The familiar questions creep in, but this time, Tyler doesn't let them take over. Instead, he looks at himself in the mirror, takes a deep breath, and says the words out loud, "I'm ready for this." As he heads out the door and into the night, he feels a sense of anticipation building within him. This isn't just about the party, it's about the person he's becoming, the person who's willing to step outside his comfort zone, to take risks, and to embrace what comes next. There's no certainty in the future, no guarantees that things will go perfectly. But for once, Tyler isn't afraid of that uncertainty. In fact, he's excited by it. When he arrives at Sara's house, he feels a moment of hesitation as he stands outside the door, his hand resting on the doorknob. It's a small moment, but it's enough for him to question his decision. He could turn around, walk away, and go home. But as he steps forward, his hand pushing the door open, he realizes that he's already made the choice. He's stepping into something new, and he's not looking back. Inside, the music is loud, the laughter echoing off the walls, and the warmth of the room welcomes him. Tyler steps further in, scanning the faces of people he doesn't know, but something inside him feels lighter than before. He's here. He's present. And for the first time, it feels like exactly where he's meant to be. Mia spots him across the room and waves, a smile spreading across her face as she makes her way toward him. "I'm so glad you came," she says, her voice full of excitement. Tyler returns her smile, his heart racing with a mix of nerves and exhilaration. He's still scared, still unsure of what's to come, but he's ready for it. For the first time in a long time, he's not running away. He's diving in, fully embracing the unknown. And, for Tyler, that's the biggest victory of all.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 11, Facing the Past. The days leading up to the party are filled with a blend of excitement and anticipation. Tyler feels the shift inside him more deeply with each passing day. There's a spark in his step, a lightness to his thoughts that hasn't been there in a long time. He finds himself looking forward to things now, not just the party but little moments in his everyday life. When he walks into school in the morning, there's a subtle change in his demeanor. The weight he used to carry with him, the anxious self-doubt, seems lighter. For the first time in a long while, Tyler feels like he's moving forward rather than just surviving. Even as he heads to practice that afternoon, there's a pep in his step, a confidence in the way he carries himself. He catches sight of his reflection in the glass of the gym door and does a double take. He looks different, his posture is straighter, his expression more relaxed, and there's a softness in his eyes that wasn't there before. As he enters the gym, he catches up with Alex, who's already gearing up for practice. "You good?" Alex asks, his usual carefree demeanor mixed with an undercurrent of curiosity. Tyler nods, a grin pulling at the corners of his mouth. "Yeah, I'm good. Actually, better than good." Alex raises an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "That's a first. You've been working on something?" Tyler pauses, considering the question. He's not sure how to explain the change, but it feels real. Maybe just figuring some things out. Figuring things out, huh? Alex smirks. "Well, whatever it is, I hope it sticks." Tyler nods, but inside, a flicker of doubt resurfaces. Can it stick? He's been trying so hard to move forward, to embrace the version of himself that's not bound by old fears and insecurities, but sometimes it feels like he's walking a tightrope. One misstep, and he could fall back into the same patterns he's been trying to escape. During practice, Tyler pushes himself harder than he has in a while. The adrenaline flows as he moves through drills, the rhythm of his body syncing with the beat of his thoughts. For the first time, the fear of messing up doesn't plague him. He allows himself to make mistakes, to learn and grow, and it feels freeing. But as the practice winds down, that familiar voice of doubt creeps in again, a whisper in the back of his mind. What if this is just temporary? What if you can't really change? Later that afternoon, Tyler heads home, his mind still buzzing from practice. He doesn't know what he expects when he walks through the door, but something feels different, something's shifting within him, and he can't quite pin it down. He grabs his bag and heads upstairs to his room, the weight of his thoughts growing heavier with every step. It's as if, in all the changes he's been going through, there's a part of him he hasn't quite faced yet, the part that feels like an imposter, the part that wonders if this new version of him is truly who he is or just a temporary distraction from his past. Sitting on his bed, Tyler stares out the window, watching the clouds drift lazily across the sky. Can I truly change? He wonders. Or is this just another version of the same old me, hiding behind a mask of confidence? He's afraid of the answer, afraid of what it might mean about the person he's trying to become. The feeling of being an imposter has lingered in the back of his mind for as long as he can remember. It's the voice that tells him he's not good enough, that he's only pretending to be something he's not. And now, as he stands on the edge of what feels like a new beginning, that voice is louder than ever. Tyler leans back, resting his head against the wall, trying to make sense of the internal tug-of-war. I've been so focused on my fears that I forgot how to live, he thinks. All this time, he's been afraid of failing, of not measuring up to his own expectations, and it's kept him stuck. But now that he's starting to break free, starting to let go of the things that have held him back, he realizes just how much he's been carrying. The resentment towards his past self, the anger at the person he used to be, it all seems so unnecessary now. He can't change the past, but he can control how he moves forward. For the first time in a long time, Tyler feels a flicker of something different, a sense of acceptance. Maybe I'm not supposed to be perfect, he thinks. Maybe it's okay to still be figuring things out. But even as he embraces this newfound perspective, doubt still lingers. What if, when he finally lets his guard down, he loses everything? What if the old patterns return, and he finds himself back at square one? The next day, Tyler goes to school with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. His thoughts are scattered, and he finds it hard to focus. In class, he can't shake the feeling that something is looming just beyond the surface, a confrontation that's waiting for him to face it. It's not a confrontation with anyone else, though, it's the confrontation with himself. He can't keep pretending that he's fully embraced change until he faces the part of him that still holds on to the past. At lunch, Tyler finds himself sitting alone for a moment, his tray of food forgotten in front of him. He watches the students around him, laughing and talking, and feels a sense of disconnection, not from them, but from himself. He's been pretending to be someone he's not, hiding behind the changes he's made, but he can't keep running from who he was. If he's going to move forward, he needs to let go of the guilt he's been carrying, the guilt of not living up to his own standards, the guilt of not being the person he thought he should be. When Mia arrives at the table, she notices the distant look in his eyes. "You okay?" she asks, her voice full of concern. Tyler meets her gaze, the words he's been holding back threatening to spill out. I don't know. I've been thinking about who I was, and who I'm trying to be. And I'm not sure if I'm doing it right." Mia sits down beside him, her presence steady and comforting. "You don't have to have it all figured out, Tyler. You're allowed to be a work in progress. We all are." Her words resonate deep within him, like a light shining through the fog. Maybe he doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe it's okay to stumble, to fall, to question everything. What matters is that he keeps moving forward. As the bell rings and the day moves on, Tyler feels a shift within him. It's subtle but real. He's not done yet, not by a long shot. But for the first time in a while, he feels like he's on the right path, even if that path is still unfolding before him. The past is behind him, and though it will always be a part of who he is, it doesn't have to define his future. For the first time in a long time, Tyler feels like he's ready to face whatever comes next, knowing that the person he's becoming is stronger than the person he used to be. After practice that evening, Tyler makes his way to the locker room, but instead of retreating to the solitude he's grown accustomed to, he heads toward Alex. He's been carrying these thoughts, these fears, inside for so long, and the weight of them is becoming harder to bear alone. It's one thing to reflect on his doubts in the quiet of his room, but it's another thing to say them out loud. And as much as Tyler wants to stay in his comfort zone, he knows that growth happens when he steps out of it. Alex is leaning against his locker, laughing about something with a couple of teammates, but when he sees Tyler approaching, his expression shifts to something more genuine. "Hey, man, what's up?" Alex asks, his voice warm and inviting. Tyler hesitates, glancing down at the ground for a moment. He feels vulnerable at this moment, like he's exposing something that's been buried deep inside him for too long. "I've been thinking," Tyler starts, his voice quieter than he intended. "About how far I've come, and how far I still have to go." He leans against the locker beside Alex, folding his arms, unsure of how to continue. "I don't know if I'm doing this right. I'm trying to be better, to be different, but sometimes I feel like I'm just pretending. Like I'm not really changing, I'm just acting. Alex listens without interrupting, his eyes thoughtful but not judgmental. After a few moments, he leans back, running a hand through his hair, and then shakes his head with a knowing smile. Tyler, man, you're overthinking it. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have everything figured out right now. The important part is that you keep moving forward. One step at a time, even if it's small. Tyler looks at him, grateful for his friend's straightforwardness. But what if it's not enough? What if I end up falling back into old habits? His voice cracks a little as the fear creeps in again, the fear that he'll never be able to fully let go of the person he used to be, that all of his progress will be undone. Alex places a hand on Tyler's shoulder, his grip firm but reassuring. Then you get up and keep going. No one's perfect, not even me. The key is learning from the mistakes. Every time you feel like you're failing, you're actually learning. It's a process. Just don't stop moving forward. Tyler takes a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off his chest. It's simple advice, but for some reason, it feels like exactly what he needed to hear. In that moment, he realizes something: change isn't about erasing the past. It's about embracing it, learning from it, and then moving forward with intention. The person he's been doesn't have to be an enemy. It's just part of his story. And now, he gets to decide how the next chapter unfolds. For a long time, Tyler has been trying to outrun his past, his fears, his mistakes, his self-doubt. But maybe the answer isn't to outrun it at all. Maybe it's about acknowledging it and using it to shape who he's becoming. He's not perfect, and he doesn't have to be. What matters is that he's trying, and that in itself is progress. As they finish getting dressed, Tyler feels a sense of peace settle over him, something he's been missing for so long. The days leading up to the party have been filled with nervous excitement, but now, as the date draws nearer, that nervousness is replaced by a quiet confidence. It's not the kind of confidence that says he's got it all figured out, but the kind that acknowledges the uncertainty and embraces it anyway. Maybe I don't have to have everything figured out right away, Tyler thinks. But I do have to try. Later that evening, Tyler heads home, his mind clearer than it has been in weeks. He's thought so much about his past, about the ways he's tried to protect himself, to keep others at a distance, but now he understands something he hadn't before. Protecting himself from pain, from rejection, from failure, it's kept him safe, yes, but it's also kept him from living fully. It's time to let go of the fear of being hurt, because it's only by being vulnerable that he can experience real connection. And maybe, just maybe, that's what he's been searching for all along. When he walks through the front door, his mom is in the kitchen, humming as she prepares dinner. Tyler stands in the doorway for a moment, watching her, and feels a small pang of gratitude. His family may not always understand everything he's going through, but they've always been there for him. In a way, they've been part of his journey, part of the process of figuring things out. As he grabs a snack from the counter, Tyler feels a sense of calm settle over him. For the first time, he's not rushing to change or to fix himself. He's just allowing himself to be, to grow at his own pace. And that's okay. Later that night, as he lies in bed, the glow of his phone screen lighting up his room, he sees a text from Mia. "Hey, I've been thinking about you. How's your day going?" Tyler smiles at the simplicity of her message. He types back a response, feeling lighter than he has in a long time, better than it's been in a while. "Just figuring things out." Mia's reply comes almost instantly. "I'm glad to hear that. I've got your back, always." Reading her words, Tyler feels a warmth spread through him. She's been a constant, a reminder that he doesn't have to navigate these changes alone. It's one thing to face his fears and insecurities on his own, but it's another thing entirely to know that someone sees him for who he really is, and that they accept him, flaws and all. As the conversation continues, Tyler feels a sense of reassurance wash over him. The doubts he once carried, the fears of not being enough, are still there, but they don't have the same hold over him. He doesn't have to have it all figured out right away. He just has to keep trying, keep moving forward, and trust that the rest will fall into place. The party is just a few days away, and while Tyler still feels a bit of nervous energy, there's something new in his heart, a quiet, steady confidence. He's not afraid of the future anymore, not afraid of what he might become or where his path might lead. He's ready to embrace the uncertainty, to live fully and without apologies. After all, it's not about being perfect, it's about being real. And for the first time in a long time, Tyler feels like he's truly living.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 12, The Party. New Year's Eve arrived with a mixture of excitement and nerves swirling inside Tyler. The day had been full of anticipation, but as evening approached, a familiar wave of uncertainty crept up on him. He stood in front of his mirror, pulling at the collar of his shirt, adjusting it for the third time. For a moment, he stared at his reflection, wondering if he was really ready to go to the party. The familiar doubts crept in, the ones that whispered about not being good enough, about messing everything up, about returning to the person he used to be. Am I really ready for this? But then Tyler thought about everything that had led him to this point. The long conversations with Mia, the late-night reflections, the moments when he'd pushed himself to face his fears, to open up when it was easier to keep everything locked inside. He wasn't the same person who had walked into this year unsure of himself and afraid of failure. He had changed. He had grown. Tyler took one last look in the mirror, smoothing out his shirt. His reflection was different now, not just physically, but emotionally. There was a sense of steadiness, of quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. This is me, he thought. And I'm ready. When he arrived at the party, the sounds of laughter and music immediately filled his ears. The house was decorated in gold and silver, balloons and streamers hanging from the ceiling, the soft glow of fairy lights adding a festive atmosphere to the night. Tyler paused at the entrance, scanning the room for Mia. And then, as if the universe had aligned, he saw her, standing by the snack table, her laughter light and free, her face glowing under the soft lights. She caught his eye, and her smile was immediate and warm, as if she had been waiting for him. There was something in her expression, something in the way she looked at him, that made him feel like maybe he wasn't as lost as he sometimes believed. Mia, Tyler said as he made his way through the crowd, his voice barely audible over the music. She turned toward him, her smile widening as she saw him. Tyler. She reached out, giving him a quick hug before stepping back to admire him. You look great, she said, her eyes sparkling with genuine excitement. Tyler felt a flutter in his chest, his nerves momentarily forgotten. He had gotten used to the idea that Mia wasn't just someone he was spending time with, but someone who had made a difference in his life, a person who saw him for who he truly was, not just the insecurities he carried. I'm lucky to have her, he thought. Thanks, Tyler replied, smiling a little too wide as he nervously adjusted his collar again. So, this is the big New Year's Eve party, huh? Mia laughed, the sound light and easy, as if it was just the two of them in the world. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but in a good way. Come on, let me introduce you to some people. She led him through the crowd, introducing him to a few friends, but Tyler couldn't shake the feeling of being a little out of place. His old habits were still lingering, the instinct to hang back, to avoid putting himself in the center of things. He was doing okay, but there was that voice in the back of his head, urging him to retreat, to play it safe. As the night wore on, Tyler found himself standing by the punch bowl, talking to Mia and some of her friends. He was laughing, more than he expected to, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was in the moment, not just watching it from the sidelines. But then, as he glanced around the room, a wave of doubt swept over him. Is this really me? He thought. Or am I just pretending to be someone I'm not? The old Tyler, the one who kept his distance, who second-guessed everything, who always held back from really participating, started to resurface. His mind wandered back to those familiar fears, the ones that told him he wasn't worthy of this, that he didn't belong. Hey, what's going on in your head? Mia's voice cut through his thoughts, and Tyler blinked, turning toward her. She had a concerned expression on her face, one that told him she could see right through his exterior. Nothing, just thinking, Tyler said, forcing a smile. Mia raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. You sure? You look like you're a million miles away. Tyler hesitated, trying to find the right words. He didn't want to spoil the mood, not when he was actually having fun. I don't know, I guess it just feels weird sometimes. Being in this moment, like really being here. I keep wondering if I'm doing it right. Mia's expression softened. She took a step closer to him, her voice gentle. You don't have to do anything right, Tyler. You just have to be yourself. The real you, not the version you think you're supposed to be. Tyler's heart skipped a beat at her words. He knew what she meant. He was still trying to shed the layers of fear and doubt that had been part of him for so long. But what if, for once, he could just let go? The music shifted, and Tyler felt Mia tug at his arm. Come on, let's dance, she said, her eyes gleaming with mischief. He hesitated for just a moment, the familiar feeling of self-consciousness creeping up. But then he saw the smile on her face, the kind that didn't ask for anything other than him showing up, just as he was. Without thinking too much, Tyler took her hand, and together they made their way to the dance floor. The music was loud, the bass pulsing through the floor beneath their feet, but for the first time that night, Tyler wasn't focused on how he looked or how he was being perceived. He was just there, dancing, laughing, and letting the music take over. As the night went on, he found himself letting go more and more, of the past, of the doubts, of the fear that had always kept him on the outside. When the clock struck midnight, Tyler felt a shift inside of him. It wasn't a grand revelation or a moment of sudden clarity, but something simpler. Something quieter. He realized that it wasn't about waiting for the perfect moment to change or for everything to fall into place. It was about making every moment count. Tyler looked at Mia, who was grinning at him as the crowd cheered around them. She didn't need to say anything for him to understand that he had come a long way. And for the first time, Tyler was okay with that. He wasn't perfect, but he was real, and that was more than enough. As the clock ticked toward the new year, Tyler felt a sense of peace wash over him. The journey wasn't over, but he had crossed a threshold. He wasn't afraid of the future anymore. He wasn't afraid of himself. And for the first time in a long time, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The countdown continued to echo in Tyler's mind as the final seconds of the year ticked away. The atmosphere in the room became electric, the energy of the crowd palpable as they all prepared for the moment. Tyler stood in the center, Mia at his side, surrounded by laughter and chatter. His heart was racing, not from anxiety, but from the sheer excitement of being present, of not holding back, of living in the moment. As the clock hit 0, the room erupted in cheers and shouts. For the first time in as long as Tyler could remember, he didn't feel out of place. He wasn't caught in his head, questioning if he was doing things right, or wondering what people thought of him. Instead, he was laughing, his arms lifted in celebration, his smile wide and unguarded. People surrounded him, exchanging hugs and wishes for the new year, and he didn't hesitate to join in. For the first time, Tyler truly felt that he belonged, not because he was perfect, but because he had allowed himself to be real. All the old fears that had once held him back, the fear of being exposed, of not measuring up, seemed so small now. The weight that had once anchored him down, pulling him into isolation and self-doubt, had lifted. It wasn't about becoming someone else, someone better, it was about becoming himself, whole, unapologetic, and unafraid of the imperfections that came with being human. Amidst the clamor of voices and the clinking of glasses, Tyler's gaze drifted to Mia. She stood beside him, a beacon of calm in the frenetic energy of the party. Her eyes met his, and there was something about the way she looked at him, soft, understanding, and full of pride, that made his chest swell with gratitude. In that moment, Tyler realized that she had been there for him through so many small but significant shifts, supporting him even when he wasn't sure he deserved it. Her presence had been a steady light guiding him through the darkest parts of his journey, and now, as they stood together on the brink of a new year, Tyler understood just how much she had changed his life. Mia smiled at him, her fingers brushing against his. "Happy New Year," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth. Tyler squeezed her hand gently, feeling the connection between them deepen in a way that was more meaningful than any words could express. He didn't have to say anything, because at that moment, they both understood something unspoken. They were both at the beginning of something new. Something better. Something real. The crowd's cheers started to fade as the sound of fireworks bursting in the distance filled the air. Tyler turned his gaze toward the sky, the colors of the fireworks reflecting in his eyes. Red, gold, green, each explosion of light felt like a promise, a new beginning, a chance to make something of the future. For years, Tyler had been afraid of change. Afraid of the unknown. Afraid that he would lose himself in it. But now, as the fireworks illuminated the night, Tyler realized that the fear he used to carry had been a barrier, not a truth. The only thing holding him back was the belief that he wasn't worthy of something better, something different. The past year had taught him something crucial: change wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace. He had learned that vulnerability wasn't a weakness, it was a strength, a key to deeper connections and truer relationships. He didn't have to be perfect, and he didn't have to have everything figured out. All he had to do was keep showing up, keep growing, and keep taking chances. Mia's fingers curled around his, pulling him gently toward her. Tyler let her lead him, his heart swelling with affection as he followed her gaze back to the sky. The fireworks continued to explode in brilliant colors, painting the sky with their brief but beautiful bursts of light. For a moment, Tyler felt as if everything had come full circle. He was no longer running from himself, no longer afraid of what might happen if he let go of his past. "This is it," Mia whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This is the start of something new." Tyler nodded, his voice barely above a breath. "I think I'm ready for it." Mia smiled, her eyes sparkling with unspoken understanding. There was no need for grand gestures or dramatic declarations. At that moment, they both knew that the real transformation had already happened. They had come so far, not just as individuals, but as a team, two people navigating the ups and downs of life, supporting each other along the way. As the fireworks fizzled out and the first moments of the new year settled in, Tyler felt a sense of peace wash over him. There was still so much he didn't know about the future, still so much uncertainty ahead, but for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid of it. He didn't have to control every outcome or plan every step ahead. He just had to live, to take things one day at a time, and to trust that he was capable of handling whatever came his way. And as he stood there with Mia, watching the last of the fireworks fade into the night sky, Tyler realized that this was exactly where he was meant to be. Not alone, not in the shadows of his past, but here, in the present, ready to step into a future he had once been too afraid to embrace. The countdown was over. The old year was behind him, and the new one lay ahead, full of possibilities. And for the first time, Tyler felt that he was ready for it. Ready to face whatever came next, knowing that he had everything he needed inside him. This is just the beginning, he thought. And I'm ready for it.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 13, Letting Go. The first Monday of the new year felt like a fresh start in more ways than one. Tyler stepped onto the school grounds with an unfamiliar but welcome sense of peace settling in his chest. His steps were slower than usual, more deliberate, as if he was savoring the calm that seemed to have replaced the constant tension of the past. The anxious thoughts that used to swirl endlessly in his mind were quieter now, replaced by a new sense of clarity. For the first time in what felt like forever, Tyler didn't feel like he was running from something. He wasn't chasing perfection or waiting for someone else to tell him he was okay. He simply was, and that was enough. As he walked through the halls, he noticed how everything seemed different. The buzz of conversations around him, the familiar clatter of lockers being slammed shut, it all felt like background noise to the stillness inside him. He had learned to embrace the silence, the quiet space that now existed between his thoughts. It was as though he could finally breathe without the weight of self-doubt pressing down on his chest. Mia had been right. He didn't need to constantly prove himself, or search for validation from others. He had spent so much time trying to be someone he thought others would accept, that he had forgotten what it felt like to just be, to exist as himself, flaws and all. There was a quiet power in realizing that he was enough. That the person he had spent so long trying to escape, trying to perfect, was worthy of love, of happiness, and of success just as he was. In the past, Tyler's thoughts had been a constant loop of what-ifs and I'm not enoughs, but now those doubts felt more like distant echoes. He could hear them, but they no longer controlled him. They no longer held him back. Instead, he felt the pull of something stronger, an inner peace, a sense of self-worth that came not from the outside world, but from within. It was liberating, and a little terrifying, but Tyler knew it was the only way forward. As he walked into the school building, he noticed how much smaller the world seemed now. The hallways, the classrooms, even the other students, all of them felt less intimidating than they had before. It wasn't that Tyler had suddenly become immune to the pressure of high school life, it was that he had learned how to exist in it without letting it overwhelm him. He wasn't striving to be anything more than what he already was, and that felt like freedom. Tyler made his way to his locker, his mind drifting over the changes he'd experienced over the past few months. How had it all happened so fast? One moment, he was a tightly wound ball of anxiety and fear, constantly second-guessing every move he made. And now, here he was, walking through life with a newfound sense of self-acceptance. Sure, he still had his moments of uncertainty, but they no longer defined him. He was learning to sit with the discomfort, to let it pass instead of clinging to it. As he pulled his books from his locker, he caught sight of Alex down the hallway. Tyler smiled, feeling an almost surprising sense of camaraderie with his friend. Alex had been there through all the ups and downs, always a steady presence even when Tyler had been too afraid to fully embrace the changes happening within him. Tyler walked toward him, feeling the weight of the past few months settle in his bones. "Hey, man," Alex said, his usual easygoing grin plastered on his face. "How was the party?" Tyler shrugged, but his smile was genuine. "It was good. Really good, actually." "Good to hear," Alex said, clearly seeing the shift in Tyler's demeanor. "You seem different." Tyler paused for a moment, considering the truth in Alex's words. "I think I am," he said finally. "I've been figuring some stuff out. Taking ownership of things. You know?" Alex nodded knowingly. "I get it. It's not easy, but it's worth it. You're not the same guy you were last year. You're better. Tyler felt a warmth spread through his chest at Alex's words. It wasn't the kind of validation he had been seeking from others before, but it was still a reminder that the people who mattered could see his growth, even if he hadn't fully realized it himself. Thanks, man, Tyler said, clapping him on the back. I appreciate it. As he walked to class, Tyler's thoughts turned inward again. The transition hadn't been easy, and it wasn't going to stay this smooth. There would still be moments of doubt, moments when he'd slip back into his old habits of overthinking and self-criticism. But now, he knew that he could work through those moments without letting them define him. He didn't need to be perfect, and he didn't need to have everything figured out. He just needed to keep moving forward, one step at a time. In class, as Tyler took his seat, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. The pressure to perform, to impress, to be something he wasn't, those things were slipping away. He had never been a straight-A student or the life of the party. But he had always been capable of something else, a kind of quiet strength, a steady resolve. And now, he was finally allowing himself to tap into it. Tyler wasn't going to let his past define him anymore. The mistakes, the fears, the doubts, they were all a part of who he had been, but they weren't who he was now. He was more than his past, more than his insecurities. He was a person in progress, and that was enough. As the bell rang to signal the start of class, Tyler took a deep breath, settling into his seat. For the first time in a long while, he felt ready to face whatever came next, knowing that he had already taken the hardest step, letting go of the person he had been and embracing the person he was becoming. Maybe, just maybe, he was finally on the path to truly living. Maybe I've always had enough. Maybe it's just taken me this long to see it. After school, Tyler meets Mia by the gates, the familiar sense of comfort settling between them as they walk toward the nearby park. The sun is beginning to set, casting a warm golden hue over the path ahead of them. Tyler takes a deep breath, feeling the crisp air fill his lungs, and he realizes, for the first time in a long time, that he isn't dreading the next step. For once, there's no looming fear about the future, no anxiety about what's to come. There's only the present, the path beneath his feet and the person beside him. Hey, Mia says, her voice soft but filled with warmth. How's everything going? Tyler looks at her, surprised at how easy it is to be honest with her now. It's as if the walls that used to surround him are no longer there. He doesn't have to guard himself, and doesn't have to hide behind the fear of rejection. He's no longer caught in the endless spiral of self-doubt. It's good, he says, his voice steady. Really good, actually. I've been thinking a lot. Mia turns to him, her eyes curious. About what? Tyler runs a hand through his hair, gathering his thoughts. About everything, I guess. About how much I've changed, how much I've grown. It's been a lot, but, he pauses for a moment, trying to find the words. I've learned more about myself in the past few months than I ever thought I would. Mia nods, a knowing smile spreading across her face. I can tell. You're different, Tyler. I mean, I've always known you had it in you. You've just had to see it for yourself. The words hit him with a quiet intensity, and for the first time, Tyler fully absorbs the weight of them. He's always been so focused on what he thought he lacked, so consumed by the fear that he wasn't enough. But now, here, in this moment, he's finally beginning to see what Mia has seen all along, that he's been enough all along. It wasn't about changing to fit someone else's expectations. It was about accepting himself, flaws and all, and realizing that growth didn't mean perfection, it meant progress. I don't think I ever realized how much I was holding on to until now, Tyler says, his voice thoughtful. I was so afraid of change, of messing things up. But now, it feels like I've let go of so much. And, it's freeing. Mia smiles softly, and Tyler can see the pride in her eyes. I'm proud of you, she says simply, and the sincerity in her voice makes his heart skip a beat. For a moment, they walk in silence, the quiet stretch of the path before them mirroring the peace that Tyler is starting to feel within himself. He's not perfect, and he knows that. He still has moments of self-doubt, moments when the fear creeps in and threatens to take over. But they don't define him anymore. Fear is just another part of the journey, not something to be feared in itself. I used to think that I had to have everything figured out, Tyler says, his voice barely above a whisper. Like, if I didn't have a clear plan for the future, if I didn't know exactly who I was supposed to be, then I was failing. But now, I'm starting to see that maybe the whole point is just to keep moving forward, even if it's messy. Mia's expression softens, and she stops walking for a moment, turning to face him fully. That's exactly it. Life isn't about having everything figured out. It's about growing, learning, and being okay with not knowing it all. It's about trusting that you're going in the right direction, even when it doesn't always feel clear. Tyler takes a deep breath, the weight of her words settling in his chest. It's like a light bulb has gone off in his mind. All this time, he's been so fixated on the destination, on the idea that he had to have everything planned out. But the journey, the messiness, the uncertainty, is just as important as where it leads. It's what shapes him, what helps him grow. I think I've been too hard on myself, Tyler says quietly, more to himself than to Mia. I've been so focused on what I thought I should be, instead of just letting myself be who I am. Mia reaches over, placing a hand on his arm, her touch warm and reassuring. You're learning, Tyler. And that's all any of us can do. It's okay to be unsure. It's okay to not have all the answers. What matters is that you're moving forward. You're growing. And that's what matters most. Tyler feels a swell of gratitude for Mia, her patience, her understanding, her belief in him when he couldn't see it himself. He doesn't have all the answers, and he doesn't know exactly where his path is leading, but for the first time in a long time, he's not afraid of it. He's not afraid of the future or of the changes that are still coming. Because he knows, deep down, that he's capable of handling whatever comes next. I think I'm finally starting to believe that, Tyler admits, the words feeling like a weight lifted off his shoulders. That I don't have to have everything figured out. That I can just be. Mia smiles, and there's a softness in her eyes that makes Tyler's heart feel full. You don't have to be perfect, Tyler. You just have to keep being you. Tyler stops walking, turning to face her fully. There's a shift inside him, a sense of calm that feels deeper than anything he's felt before. He's not afraid anymore. Not of change, not of the future, not even of himself. He's ready to embrace it all, whatever it may bring. I'm ready, Tyler says quietly, his voice steady. I'm ready to keep moving forward. And I think I'm finally okay with not knowing where it's all going. Mia's smile grows, and she steps closer to him. Good, she says softly. Because you're exactly where you need to be. And in that moment, Tyler knows that she's right. He doesn't need to know everything, doesn't need to have it all figured out. The only thing that matters is that he's finally allowed himself to let go of the past, to embrace the person he's becoming, and to trust that everything will fall into place. One step at a time. The year is new. So is he. And for the first time in a long time, he feels truly free.
Akumah Audiobooks.
You are listening to the Unwritten Pages of January. Written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 14, The New Beginning. The semester rolls on, and Tyler feels the subtle shift inside himself. Each day, he wakes up with a renewed sense of purpose. His reflection in the mirror isn't the same person who walked into the new year uncertain and fearful. There's a quiet strength in his eyes now, a calmness that comes from having faced his own fears and learned to embrace them. He's no longer the guy who hides in the background, afraid of change. He's no longer the person who, just a few months ago, would have shrunk away from anything that pushed him outside of his comfort zone. In fact, Tyler's starting to feel comfortable with discomfort. Each small challenge he faces feels like another victory, another step toward the person he's becoming. When he walks into the school building now, there's no longer that familiar knot in his stomach, the one that used to tighten every time he stepped into the halls. Instead, he holds his head up a little higher, his shoulders a little more relaxed. He's no longer walking through the halls as though they're a maze to navigate, but as if they're just part of his everyday life. And that's the key, isn't it? Life is about walking through the mess, the unknown, and not being afraid to keep moving forward. Tyler's transformation isn't just in his confidence, though. He's been learning how to open himself up to others, something he'd never been good at before. He's spent so long building walls around himself, afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of being hurt. But now, with each passing day, Tyler finds himself less afraid of those connections. He's learned that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a strength. And while it still feels risky at times, the rewards of being open, of allowing others in, are worth the discomfort. Mia has been a constant in this journey. From the first time they met, she saw something in him that he couldn't see in himself. And as they spent more time together, Tyler began to trust her more, to lean into that connection instead of pulling back. It wasn't always easy, but Mia never pushed him, she simply accepted him for who he was, flaws and all. And, as a result, Tyler has become more accepting of himself. One afternoon, after class, Tyler finds himself walking down the hallway with a group of friends, laughing at something Alex had just said. For the first time, he feels like he belongs in this group. No longer the outsider, no longer the one who hangs back, Tyler is fully participating. He realizes that he's no longer just tagging along with the crowd, he's contributing, making jokes, and sharing his thoughts. It's a small thing, but to Tyler, it feels monumental. "I can't believe we're almost halfway through the semester," Alex says, breaking into Tyler's thoughts. "Feels like just yesterday we were all freaking out about exams and college apps." Tyler laughs, nodding. "Yeah, it's crazy how fast time flies." The group continues talking about their upcoming plans for spring break, but Tyler's mind drifts to how far he's come. Just a few months ago, he would have avoided these conversations, choosing to stay in the background, to remain invisible. He would have let fear guide him, let it dictate his choices. But now, he's an active participant in his life. He's learning to take risks, small ones, at first, but he's learning nonetheless. And with each small risk, each small step toward the unknown, he grows. He feels more at ease with himself, more willing to accept that change is part of life. It's not something to fear or resist. It's something to embrace, even if it feels uncomfortable at times. As Tyler sits down in his last class of the day, he looks around at the people sitting near him. He's no longer the kid who sat alone, the one who avoided eye contact, the one who stayed out of the way. Now, he's part of this group. They talk and laugh like friends do, with no judgment, no hesitation. And for the first time, Tyler realizes that the sense of belonging he's been searching for was always within his reach. He simply had to let go of his fear of not being enough. At lunch the next day, as he sits with Mia, he reflects on how much has changed. It's a quiet moment, the two of them sitting side by side, their conversation drifting from classes to random thoughts, to plans for the weekend. Tyler feels at ease, no longer struggling with the anxiety that used to accompany these conversations. He no longer feels like he has to hide or pretend to be something he's not. Mia notices the change too. "You've been a lot more open lately," she says, offering him a soft smile. "I like it." Tyler looks at her, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Yeah," he says, "I guess I'm starting to figure out that it's okay to be myself. To not be perfect. I'm done trying to prove anything." Mia's smile widens, and she reaches over, gently squeezing his hand. "I'm proud of you, Tyler. You've come so far." Tyler smiles back, the warmth of her words sinking deep into his chest. It's hard to explain how much they mean, how much they've helped him along the way. He feels like he's been given a second chance, not at life, but at himself. For so long, he thought he had to be someone else, someone he wasn't, to be accepted. But now, he knows better. And as they finish lunch, laughing at something that Tyler can't even remember now, he feels a sense of peace he hasn't known before. He's not chasing after perfection, not running from his past, not scared of what's to come. He's simply living in the moment, fully present in his own life. For the first time in a long time, Tyler feels like he's finally found a place where he belongs. He's no longer a prisoner of his own doubts. He's let go of the fear that used to control him. And as he steps into the new year, he does so with the confidence that comes from truly knowing himself, not just the version of himself he thought he had to be, but the person he is right now, in this moment. Tyler has learned that it's not about having everything figured out. It's about taking each day as it comes, being present, and trusting that he is exactly where he's supposed to be. The new year is a fresh start, not because everything has changed, but because Tyler has finally let go of the things that held him back. He's ready to face whatever comes next, not with fear, but with the knowledge that he has the strength to handle it. And for the first time, Tyler feels like he's on the path he was always meant to be on. The last day of school before the break is filled with a sense of finality, but also a quiet excitement. Tyler walks through the halls, surrounded by the usual chatter and clatter of lockers slamming shut, but for the first time in a long time, he feels completely in sync with the moment. It's the end of a chapter, not just in the school year, but in his own life. A year that, only months ago, seemed like it would be another in a long line of unanswered questions has turned into a story of growth, transformation, and discovery. As he walks to his locker, Tyler pauses and looks around. He sees the faces of his classmates, some familiar, some just passing figures, but for once, he doesn't feel invisible. He's no longer the guy who slips into the background, afraid of being seen. He's the person who has stood up, who has let go of his doubts, and who has embraced change. His heart swells with pride, not because he's perfect, far from it, but because he's come so far. He's no longer trapped by the weight of his own fears. The future is no longer a daunting unknown. It's something to be faced with open arms. He remembers the early days of the year, the moments when his anxiety and self-doubt seemed to drown out everything else. The times he tried to hide behind distractions, behind walls, thinking that being alone was safer than being vulnerable. But he's learned so much since then. He's learned that real growth doesn't come from avoiding the hard parts. It comes from facing them, from leaning into the discomfort of change and trusting that, even when it feels like everything is falling apart, it's all a part of something bigger. He's realized that, just like the changing of the seasons, growth is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes painful, but it's also beautiful. Tyler stops in front of the door to his next class and takes a deep breath. He's proud of how far he's come, but he's not done yet. There's still so much left to learn, so many more steps to take. The journey isn't over. It's only just begun. When the bell rings, signaling the end of the day, Tyler gathers his things and makes his way out of the school. The air is crisp, and the sky is a soft gray as winter settles in. It's a quiet contrast to the bustling halls of the school, but Tyler welcomes the stillness. He steps outside and takes in the scene around him, students walking to buses, parents waiting in cars, the everyday rush of life continuing on. And yet, for him, everything feels different. The world around him is the same, but he's changed. As Tyler walks across the parking lot, he notices Mia waiting near the gate. She's standing there with a soft smile on her face, her hands tucked into her jacket pockets. Tyler's heart lifts at the sight of her. She's been his constant through all of this, steady, supportive, and never once doubting his ability to change. They've gone through so much together, and in a way, she's been the spark that ignited his journey of self-discovery. When she sees him, her face lights up, and she walks toward him, her smile wide and warm. "Hey," she says, her voice bright with the same happiness that Tyler feels in this moment. "Hey," Tyler responds, matching her smile. "Ready for the break?" "I am now," she says with a wink, her eyes sparkling. Tyler chuckles, feeling the weight of the past months lift off his shoulders. There's a sense of completion in the air, a feeling that everything is coming together in a way that makes sense, even if it's not perfect. They've both changed, but in a way, they've also stayed the same. They're still the same people they were before, only now they know each other better, truly, deeply, and honestly. They start walking together, side by side, and Tyler lets out a contented sigh. He's not sure what the future holds. There's still uncertainty ahead, still questions that he doesn't have the answers to. But for the first time in his life, he's okay with that. The fear that once gripped him so tightly is no longer in control. He's learned that life is not about having all the answers. It's about taking each step as it comes and trusting that he's heading in the right direction. As they walk, Tyler reflects on how much he's learned this year. It wasn't just about the big moments, the parties, the milestones, the breakthroughs, it was the quiet, everyday moments too. It was about the conversations with Mia, the talks with Alex, the small shifts in his own thoughts and beliefs. It was about being willing to look inward, to ask himself the hard questions, and to accept the answers, even when they weren't easy. Tyler and Mia reach the end of the parking lot, and as they stop to face each other, Tyler feels a wave of gratitude. Gratitude for the person he's become, for the friends he's made, and for the journey he's still on. "Thanks for everything, Mia," he says, his voice sincere. She smiles, tilting her head slightly. "You don't need to thank me, Tyler. You've done all the work. I've just been here to watch you grow." Tyler feels a lump in his throat, and for the first time in a while, he's not afraid to show his emotions. He smiles, feeling the warmth of her words settle deep in his chest. "Still, I couldn't have done it without you," he says softly. "I really mean that." Mia's smile softens, and she steps closer to him. "I'm glad you're finally seeing what I always saw in you." Tyler feels something deep within him shift. He doesn't need anyone else's approval anymore, but hearing that from her means the world. He's not the same person he was when they first met, and he's proud of who he's becoming. As they stand there, Tyler looks out at the sky, the first star beginning to twinkle in the dusky sky. The year is ending, but it's not the end. It's just the beginning. A new chapter, a new opportunity to continue the journey of growth, of self-discovery, and of embracing the unknown. "I'm ready for whatever comes next," Tyler says, his voice quiet but confident. Mia looks at him, her expression full of understanding. "Me too." They stand there together for a moment, the weight of the year lifting, leaving behind only the promise of what lies ahead. The new year isn't just about turning a page in the calendar, it's about starting fresh, and Tyler knows he's finally on the right path. He's no longer afraid to face the future, whatever it may bring. Here's to the new year. Here's to new beginnings. And here's to Tyler, finally living his truth, step by step, with no more fear of the unknown. The end.
Akumah Audiobooks.
This is the end of this story. For part 2, comment down below and consider subscribing for more tales like this. Subscribe.